This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
As Charismatic strides forward in the final furlong and wrestles the lead away from Yankee Victor, coming to the line of the Coolmore Lexington is going to be Charismatic in front.
Teppan up through the gearbox now into the final furlong, chased by Wakila, but 6 lengths between them. Nothing like turning the Keeneland lawn into your personal playground. It is all Teppan to win the Coolmore, Jenny Wiley.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
We have another new leader, and this time it's the favorite Whitmore, and he takes charge. He's a length and a half in front of Holy Boss. From the outside, Mo Candy, but Whitmore comes to the final 16, drifts out just a bit, but he's got lengths to work with. Here is Whitmore. Yes!
Into the stretch of the Apple Blossom Handicap. It is Take Charge Lady leading at a length. Aziri digging in with a furlong to go. Take Charge Lady leads it. Aziri trying to get to her. Take Charge Lady is strong. Aziri the champion trying one more time. Here she comes down the middle. The champion Aziri, and she does it. A tremendous finish.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, welcoming you to the show that launched a network. It is the Equine Forum. It is all presented by TwinSpires and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. As always, you are listening on Sirius 162, XM 207, along with our terrestrial partners and live streaming worldwide, anywhere you are, on our website, horseracingradio.net. And don't forget, if you miss any portion of today's show or you just want to catch up on some of your favorite HRN programs that we bring your way every single week, we make them all available for you on our website as a podcast after the live airing. So you can listen at horseracingradio.net, or you can listen on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you get your podcasts. Poll question for you this morning. Going to start right off with the poll question. Who is your Kentucky Derby pick not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado? You can go to @HRRN on X to let us know your thoughts. You can go to Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. And if you don't do social media, email the show and let me know who is your Kentucky Derby pick not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado. And you can do that, Mike, at horseracingradio.net. Today's Lexington Stakes at Keeneland is the final Kentucky Derby points race. And it's been a wild road, hasn't it, in a lot of respects? We thought Ted Noffey, remember, we thought Ted Noffey was going to be the big star, and he was. He's the 2-year-old champion. Then he gets knocked off the Derby trail with an injury. Then we thought, okay, here comes Paladin. Look out. Paladin looks like he could be any kind. And then he goes to the sidelines. And that was heartbreaking for Chad Brown, who now has to rely on other horses to try to give him that first Kentucky Derby victory. But as those horses were going to the sidelines, other stars emerged. And we saw the 3 horses I just mentioned, Renegade, Commandment, Further Ado, go to the head of the class. And in the Lexington Stakes today, Confessional, who currently has 15 points, really the only horse who appears to have a chance to get into the Kentucky Derby picture. And if he were to run huge today, coming out of that third in the Virginia Derby, it would give Brad Cox yet another potential Kentucky Derby starter if they decide to move on. Keep in mind, Brad already has 3 of the top 5 points earners with Commandment, Further Ado, and Full Effort. He's sitting pretty right now. But in terms of the poll question, who is your Kentucky Derby pick not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado? What about the Puma? Kind of that old adage of if you love Commandment, well, you better love the Puma, too, because he was only a nostril behind him in the Florida Derby, right? That was one heck of a horse race. Both of those horses battle-tested, which should serve them well. Maybe the Puma is a horse that gets a lot of attention. What about the horse that was third in the Florida Derby, Chief Wallaby? Are you still a believer? He was very much a hype horse, and rightfully so, after what he had done in his previous starts when he got into the Florida Derby. And a lot of people were thinking, okay, Chief Wallaby, Bill Mott, here we go again. Maybe Mott wins back-to-back derbies. He still might. Chief Wallaby ran well. Does he want to get the 1.25 miles? Well, we don't know that about any of these 3-year-olds yet, right? They'll all get the 1.25 miles. It's just a matter of how fast they get it. So we'll find out in 3 weeks' time if maybe Chief Wallaby is the one. But he could be a legitimate answer, and I'm sure many of you will chime in and say, yeah, he's my horse, not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado. How about the Santa Anita Derby winner? What do you do with So Happy? This could be the best story of this year's Kentucky Derby. And every year, there are human interest stories that grab us when it comes to the Kentucky Derby. This one here is as good as it gets. Trainer Mark Glatt winning the Santa Anita Derby just a couple of months after losing his wife, Dina. That happened in February when she succumbed to heart failure at the age of 57. And Mark Glatt's still super emotional, as you would imagine. Dina was by his side with all of his horses, including So Happy early in his career. And as he said after the race, it's a huge void not to have her at the racetrack with him. He tries to stay busy. He's going to stay busy with So Happy now. But what a story it would be if he can find a way to be draped in a garland of roses on the first Saturday in May. So Happy, he has a little bit of a Giacomo feel to me. And I get that when Giacomo came into the Kentucky Derby, he wasn't winning races like the Santa Anita Derby. Remember, he was 4th in the Santa Anita Derby that year. He was 2nd before that in the San Felipe, 3rd in the Sham, 2nd in the Hollywood Futurity at the end of his 2-year-old season. So Giacomo was not a win machine, and that's why he was 50-1. But for some reason, this So Happy just kind of gives me that Giacomo feel when you start talking about horses that are not named Renegade, Commandment, and Further Ado, who could be your pick to win the Kentucky Derby. Have we forgotten about Incredible? I think we have. The Virginia Derby winner. Going into the Virginia Derby, I had a conversation here on the program with Riley Mott, if you recall. And we were talking about whether or not this is a horse that can rebound after a dismal effort in his 3-year-old debut where he didn't even pick up his feet. And I think a lot of people at that point had already written him off, lost faith in Incredible. He won the Grade 3 Street Sense at Churchill last fall. Proved that he was a good horse, but he had to continue to develop at 3. And when he ran that stinker in his 3-year-old debut, people were just writing him off. And I'm not sure how many people have gotten back on that train again. He's kind of the horse that's flying under the radar that, to me, has the look of a serious player in this Derby picture. Is he fast enough? Well, again, we'll find out. We don't know which horses are fast enough right now. I mean, Further Ado, Commandment, Renegade, they certainly look like they are. But Incredibolt is really intriguing to me. And you can say, all right, well, he won the Virginia Derby, 1 1/8, but it's a 1-turn 1 1/8. But he's already proven he can go around 2 turns. I just mentioned he won the Grade 3 Street Sense at Churchill as a 2-year-old, around 2 turns. How about Silent Tactic? Could he be the one to finally give dual Hall of Fame trainer Mark Casse his first Derby victory? Sure, why not? All he does is show up every time you lead him over. Wins the Southwest Stakes, 2nd in the Rebel, 2nd in the Arkansas Derby, behind the horse that a lot of people are thinking is going to be the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. That's Renegade. So why can't Silent Tactic be the one? Now, he comes from further back. That doesn't always play well in the Kentucky Derby. We think that it's going to because it's a 1.25 mile race. You think closers are going to excel. That doesn't always happen. Matter of fact, most of the time it's a horse that has some type of stalking speed or early speed that can get themselves into a position and stay out of trouble. When you're a closer, you have to get the mind that bird trip where everything just opens up for you. Everything clicks. Because you don't want to get stopped. Once you start your run as a closer, you got to keep going. And getting stopped and getting going again for those types of horses typically doesn't work. But Silent Tactics shows up and runs his race every time. And then there's Louisiana Derby winner, Emerging Market. What do you make of the horses coming out of Louisiana? I think you put them in the same category almost as the horses in New York coming out of the wood. We just don't know how good those horses are in those regions. Emerging Market for Chad Brown, impressive. To go from a maiden win in your debut and then come back and win the Louisiana Derby. Does that speak to the quality of Emerging Market or the lack of quality with that field that he was beating? Pavlovian, who was second, nice horse for Doug O'Neill. But is he a horse that scares you when you think about upsetters in the Kentucky Derby? How about Golden Tempo? Nice horse, but kind of like Silent Tactic, comes from way, way out of it. And is going to have a lot of things go right, and it's going to have to show that he can finish fast enough to run everybody down through the stretch at 1.25 miles. So there's question marks there. But I want to know your thought. I just gave you some choices. Maybe you have some others that you're looking at. For whatever reason, you feel that's your Derby pick other than those top three, Renegade, Commandment, Further Ado. And by the way, of those three, Erod Ortiz Jr. has been aboard all three. He made the decision this week to stick with Renegade, which is another reason I think we're going to see Renegade go off as the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. You have one of the best jockeys of our generation saying, he's my guy. He's the one. I've ridden them all, but he's the one I feel best suited to give me my first Derby win and to handle the 1.25 miles with 19 other horses in the race with me. Huge, huge vote of confidence for Renegade there. All right, I'll update the poll question as we move throughout the morning here. It's a very busy show. I'm going to tell you which guests you're going to hear from over the next few hours. I'll do that in a moment. But first, I got to check in with my producer, Lee Delapina, because he has this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question. Lee?
Thank you, Mike. This week's Impossible Trivia question is brought to you by Mojo Racing Partners, celebrating their 20th anniversary this month. Get your mojo working at mojoracingpartners.com. Okay, here's a three-part question. Which horse had the slowest winning time in Kentucky Derby history? What year did he win the race? And what was that time? No Googling. We'll give out the answer at the end of the show.
All right, there you have it. The answer coming your way right around 10:55 Eastern time. Get your mojo work and see if you can come up with it. That's a tough one here for you this morning. All right, when I come back after this first break, you're going to hear from trainer Brendan Walsh. There is racing other than the road to the Kentucky Derby and the Lexington Stakes at Keeneland today. And one of the biggest races on the calendar is the QE2 Challenge, the Grade 1 at Keeneland today. That's the big race today. I'll come up with the name of it. Don't worry about me. Brendan Walsh going to join me here in just a few minutes. He will talk about that. Chad Brown has won that race today, a record 7 times. Is he going to do it again? Will he make it 8? By the way, kudos to Chad Brown, who ends up picking up a huge win yesterday. Win number 3,000. Great milestone for him. We'll see if he can win the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland later today. That is the name of that race. It's a big one. Brendan Walsh going to try to stop him from doing that. How about Gatewood Bell? Percy's Bar winning the Ashland last weekend. Percy's Bar is pretty good. On her way to the Kentucky Oaks now. Gatewood, the vice president of racing at Keeneland. He'll be here right around 8:35 to look back on that one. David Aragona, he does a great job writing for the Daily Racing Form. Puts together his top Derby horses every single week. You're going to hear from him coming up 9 o'clock Eastern to begin hour number 2. Trainer Dan Ward is going to join me The last time he was on this program, he talked about Majestic Oops, who came out and upset champion Nitrogen in the Azeri. Going to try to do it again today in the Grade 1 Apple Blossom down at Oaklawn. You'll hear from Dan Ward at 9:20. And at 9:40, our Kentucky bred conversation with breeder Lee Pokoik, talking about going to the Kentucky Derby potentially for the first time with a horse he bred by the name of Commandment. So we'll talk to Lee at 9:40. 10 o'clock Eastern begins Hour 3. It begins with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Ashley Anderson has 3 races for you to watch and wager on with TwinSpires this afternoon. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20. Dale Roman's Tim Wilkin at 10:30 with I Ask, They Answer. All ahead on a busy morning on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And they're off.
It's a new era for the Maryland Jockey Club at Laurel Park. The new Pimlico Racecourse will honor more than 151 years of racing history while embracing a bold, modern future. And now more than ever, it pays to be Maryland bred. With more than $17 million in added incentives offered annually, Maryland is one of the most attractive and sustainable jurisdictions for racing locally bred horses. Be part of the new era. Visit Pimlico.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
A quarter mile to go. Fion is still last at the top of the stretch. Opulent Restraint, Lush Lips trying to draw alongside. These two going at it into the final furlong. Laura Lynn is third. Here's Lush Lips to strike a narrow lead in the final furlong. Now she wrestles the lead away but has to hold off Laura Lynn. Lush Lips in front. Laura Lynn goes to second. Lush Lips to the wire. Lush Lips, Tyler Gaffalione aboard to win the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, presented by Dixiana.
Kurt Becker with the call. That's the way it sounded last year. Lush Lips winning the QE2 Challenge Cup, and today we'll try to knock off the competition in the Jenny Wiley and deny Chad Brown a record win number 8 in that race. If he can do it, Brendan Walsh hoping that she can, and he's with me now here on HRN. Brendan, good morning, brother.
Good morning, Mike.
Lush Lips is a serious racehorse, isn't she?
She sure is, yeah. You don't do what she's done without being a serious racehorse. So, yeah, she seems like she goes from strength to strength. So, yeah, real good filly.
Take me back to last October at Keeneland. We just heard the call from Kurt, the QE2. How special was that win?
It was great, Mike. You know, obviously that race is a race. It's very prestigious, even before I came to this country. It was one of those races that you always heard about and you always watched. And I mean, there's been some great fillies win it down through the years. You know, unfortunately, we just missed out on it a couple of years ago. But it was nice to finally get it done, and it was just reward for her because she had a great year last year.
You seem to have pushed all the right buttons with her, Brendan, because after the QE2 win, you come back in the Grade 2 Mrs. Revere at Churchill, and she wins that, and then comes back in her 4-year-old debut, the Grade 3 Honey Fox at Gulfstream. She wins that race, so she's now on a 3-race win streak. Tell me about what you've seen from her in those 3 starts, and then what you're seeing from her coming into this race.
I think she's just gotten better and better, Mike. You know, listen, last year she just went from strength to strength once everything came together for her. And I think, you know, we kind of changed her running style more than anything and just got her to relax more. You know, that's worked out really well. She seems to really relax and be able to come with that turn of foot. I think that's probably it as much as anything. But of course, you know, when these horses win like she's been winning, they get a lot of confidence from it. And I think it's just helped her go from strength to strength.
Brendan, what were you seeing in her that led you to make that change in her running style?
She was a little free, Mike. It was funny because when she came over here initially, she was the opposite. She was very laid back, and we put blinkers on her and just to kind of give her a boost. And the second time she won for us, she was very free. She went out on the lead, and she was very free. And we actually took them off of that race and ran her in the Florida Oaks with no blinkers, which she ran very good race there. But she was, she made the running and opened up at the end of the straight and got run down by Nitrogen, which of course there was no shame in that. But we took her back in the Edgewood last year at Churchill. We decided we'd take her back off the pace a little bit, which she didn't do perfectly, but it was a good stepping stone. And then we gradually went from there and just took her back off the pace, and she just learned to relax and come with a run. So I think that's really, really helped her.
Is that something, Brendan, that can only be done when they go to the post in the afternoons, or is that something you work on every morning with them?
No, I think it's something we worked on at home with her. We put her in behind horses a lot at home, and got her to relax and just to realize that it wasn't always about being in front, and. So she gradually came to hand doing that. It took a while, but I think it's been very good for her.
Yeah, that's my next question. Did she take to it readily, or did she resist that new running style a little bit?
No, she took to it pretty readily. But Mike, it's one thing to do these things in the morning. It's another thing to do it in the afternoon. When you do it in the morning, you've got one or two horses around you. You've got 9 or 10 in the afternoon. But I think too, the race has worked out good for her. She had good pace in front of her and things like that, and I think that all helped. And as she was able to do it with racing, I think she gradually learned that that's what she needed to do, and now she's a pro at it.
Is there enough pace in today's Jenny Wiley to put her in a position you want her to be in?
I believe so. I mean, look, she just needs one or two to give her a lead. And look, if there's not, she's fine now, I think, to lead too herself. Mike, I'd never, I always kind of leave it to Tyler, but I think she's got to a point now with her, if she did end up on the lead, she'd relax fine on the lead. And that, I think there's a couple of pace horses in there today, but I'm saying that if there wasn't and she ended up going to the lead, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world either.
Tyler Gaffalione has really gotten along well with her. They've been together 6 times in the afternoon, and 4 of those have resulted in wins. The other 2 are runner-up efforts, beaten just a half length in each of those starts. So he really seems to fit her. What is it about that relationship with those 2?
Well, I think, obviously Tyler's just a top-class rider, Mike, and he's got great hands, and he's got a great work ethic too. I mean, he's come out to Palm Meadows maybe 3-4 times over the winter this year and worked her, and he likes to do that, and they've built a good partnership, and I think she knows him as much as he knows her, and I think that's it as much as anything.
She is the star of the show as the morning line favorite, but Brendan, she's not the only filly, or I should say Mary, you're going to have your eye on in the Jenny Wiley today, because you're also going to send out Expensive Queen, who breaks from the inside post. Tell me more about her.
Yeah, she's very progressive filly, Mike. She we liked her a lot last year. She had some foot issues. She won at Keeneland the first time she ran in this country, came from out of the clouds, and was very impressive, winning an allowance race. We took her out to California for the Gamely, and she ran okay in the Gamely, but she came back and some foot issues started to come to the surface, and Mr. Nelman that owns her was smart enough and kind enough to give her time, and we gave her time and got her foot issues resolved. And she's come back this year, and she's really gone from strength to strength. You know, not in maybe the company that she's in today, but anything we've put in front of her so far this year, she's beaten. So, you know, she's also in a good mode, and I expect her to run a very big race.
She's owned by Fairfellow Farms, and Lush Lips, who, as I mentioned, is the Morning Line favorite, owned by Dixiana Farms. Brendan, you have two different owners trying to win a Grade 1. That's a balancing act for a trainer a little bit, isn't it?
It is, you know, but there's only so many Grade 1s, Mike. And, you know, especially this time of year with these older mares on grass, we all tend to get a little railroaded into running against one another. I mean, you can see that in the quality of the field today. There's a bunch of very, very nice fillies in there, and, you know, you don't have a ton of alternative, really, if you're going to try and win a Grade 1 this time of year. So we're all in against each other. So, you know, that's what happens, whether you happen to be lucky enough to train two of them or somebody else trains another one. It is what it is. And you know, at the end of the day, hopefully the best horse wins, and that's how it goes.
Brendan, you're one of the top trainers in the sport today, and it seems like every time you show up in a big race like this, you're squaring off with guys like Chad Brown and Brad Cox. You have to do it again. I mentioned Chad has won this race a record 7 times. Put that in perspective for a minute for me. Winning any race, but a Grade 1 7 times, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's very it's a remarkable achievement, really, Mike. You know, Chad, we all know how difficult he can be to beat. You know, but to win a race 7 times is quite remarkable, you know, and you know, to have these fillies at that point and have them doing so good on the day, you know, year after year is you know, it's very a great achievement, really, to be honest, you know.
Brendan, I want to ask you about your incredible filly, Bella Ballerina, in just a minute, but let's stick with Keeneland for a moment and talk about the Giants Causeway tomorrow. Pondering is the horse you have entered in that race, Grade 2. Tell me more about Pondering.
Yeah, no, she's nice filly, Mike. You know, she won a couple of really nice stakes last year. She won a stake at Ellis, and she won a Grade 3 on the Polytrack at Woodbine as well. She's a really nice filly. You know, we've had our issues with her too back along. She had more non-finishes than a steeplechaser for one reason or another. But at least we were able to rectify the situation with her, and you know, she got better and better last year as the year went on. So we're, you know, tomorrow's a good place to start the year with her.
Let's talk about Bella Ballerina. She wins the Rachel Alexandra. She comes back. She's second in the Fairgrounds Oaks on March 21st. What are you seeing from her? What did you make of that effort in the Fairgrounds Oaks, first of all, Brennan?
I thought she ran really well. You know, she was maybe a little bit on the muscle going down the back, and maybe paid for it at the end. Mike, you know, so, but she ran a good race. You know, the filly that beat her, I think, is an improving filly. But she, you know, she's coming along good. She's working good. She's actually working here this morning. And she's taken every step. She reminds me a lot of her sister, actually, going into the Oaks. She just seems to be kind of putting it all together. You know, it's going to be a very good Oaks this year. I think there's 5 or 6 top class fillies there, but I can't see why she wouldn't be one of them that would go in there with a very big chance.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you make sure over the next couple of weeks, and of course we saw her on March 21st, so she's had plenty of time leading into the Oaks. How do you make sure that she's ready for a peak effort that can turn the tables on everybody else in the Kentucky Oaks?
Well, I think, you know, Pretty Mischievous got beat. It's uncanny, actually, at the similarity in their run into the Oaks. Pretty Mischievous won the Rachel as well, and ended up finishing third in the Fairgrounds Oaks because, you know, maybe the day she ran in it, it kind of set up for a filly to close, and she got closed on and got beat. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's all built towards the one day, and you know, you don't have to worry too much about the prep, whether you get beat or you win. You know, she won one of them, which was sufficient to get her into the race. But, you know, it's on the day itself that matters. So, you know, that's the nice thing about the fairgrounds, Mike. The spacing going into the Oaks and the Derby, I believe, is ideal. You know, you've got the 6-7 weeks into the Oaks and Derby after you know, she's had a couple of nice runs, and we should have her, hopefully everything goes right between now and then, we should have her spot on the day.
What time is she working this morning, Brendan?
She's working at 9. She's working here in half an hour. So.
I'm going to let you get to it with her. She's an important filly in your barn right now, and she does look the part. Before I let you go, I'll just tell you, Pretty Mischievous was so good that she was able to overcome me. I bet on her that day. And even with all that weight on her, she still won the Kentucky Oaks.
There you go. That's an achievement in itself, right?
It really is, man. Hey, listen, all the best with the Jenny Wiley today and tomorrow. And then looking ahead to the Kentucky Oaks. Let's go get it done, my friend.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Brendan. Brendan Walsh here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Yeah, Pretty Mischievous was a horse I loved going into the Kentucky Oaks. And as I joke around here, my nickname growing up was the Mush, because I would jinx everything, right? You remember the movie A Bronx Tale and Eddie Mush. So to this day, people still call me the Mush. But I couldn't jinx Pretty Mischievous. And I really believe, after hearing Brendan talk about Bella Ballerina, that she could be the one to beat in the Kentucky Oaks. And if not, she's going to offer really good value too. We'll find out in a couple of weeks' time, but that's going to be fantastic. First Friday in May, actually just under 3 weeks away now from the first Friday in May, 3 weeks away from the first Saturday in May. It's an exciting time to be a fan of thoroughbred racing. When I come back, going to look back on a big win last weekend at Keeneland with Percy's Bar taking the Ashland, and now we'll try to knock off Bella Ballerina and everybody else in the Kentucky Oaks. We'll talk to Gatewood Bell, who is the vice president of racing at Keeneland and also the owner of Percy's Bar. That's next after your Legends of the Turf and this short commercial break.
The adage that all good things are worth waiting for was never better illustrated than when Alfred G. Vanderbilt's mare Geisha dropped her 1 month overdue foal on March 27, 1950. The newly arrived gray colt was by 1945 Preakness winner Polynesian, and most fittingly was bemonikered Native Dancer. In an absolutely brilliant career, he won 20 of 22 races. He was endeared by the American public. They affectionately referred to him as the Dancer or the Gray Ghost. Huge crowds surrounding the paddock when he raced, transfixed by the combination of a majestic bearing, icy calmness that he displayed before his races, and they rushed down to the rail to catch a glimpse of Native Dancer charging down the stretch to victory from way behind, eating up huge chunks of ground with his 29-foot stride. Native Dancer's reputation preceded him in his very first outing in April of his 2-year-old season. He was sent posted a 7-5 favorite and sprinted off to a 4.5 length win and breaking his maiden. A bare 4 days later, he came back to roar to victory in the youthful stakes at odds of 4-5. Never in all the rest of his days on the racetrack did he ever go up at odds any higher. He suffered a shin injury in the youthful, but he returned to the races in superb form 4 months later at Saratoga in August. He found himself in the winner's circle in the next 7 races in a row, the highlight of that streak being equaling of the world record for 6.5 furlongs in the running of the Belmont Futurity. Ankle problems delayed his first start in his sophomore season until April at Aqueduct in the Gotham Stakes 2 weeks before the Derby. He won the Gotham by 2 and romped home in the Wood Memorial by 4.5 to thereby establish himself as the overwhelming favorite in the run for the Roses. But that early May Day in 1953 was not to be his day, and the chart of that Derby tells the story. Chart caller's comment read like this: Native Dancer, roughed at the first turn by Money Broker, was eased back to secure racing room, raced wide in the run to the upper turn, saved ground entering the stretch and finished strongly, but could not overtake the winner, although probably the best. unquote. Rider Eric Guerin blamed the roughing at the clubhouse turn for the loss. Others pointed to the suspiciously large ankles of Native Dancer. At any rate, all observers agreed that in one more stride, Dark Star's victory by a head would have been instead another victory for the Dancer. After 3 hard races in 3 weeks, conditioner Bill Winfrey may well have expected to give his spectacular gray charger respite from the racing wars, but the Dancer was shipped to New York, where he won the Withers, and on the very next weekend he was on hand in Baltimore to nail down the Preakness. That was 5 wins in 5 consecutive weekends. Well, he finally got a break before galloping off to score in the Belmont Stakes and followed that with 4 more consecutive wins. Soreness in his left forefoot prevented him from meeting the 4-year-old sensation Tom Fool in the prestigious fall handicaps, and as a result, Tom Fool was named Horse of the Year. Native Dancer continued having physical problems as a 4-year-old, going posted only 3 times, but he did win all 3. He scored in the Metropolitan and Oneonta handicaps, packing 137 pounds in the latter. They were so impressive, he was finally accorded unanimous Horse of the Year honors in 1954. Through his bloodline, Native Dancer was responsible for a raft of outstanding thoroughbreds: Kauai King, Majestic Prince, Raisin Native, Coastal, Affirmed, Exclusive Native, Genuine Risk, Ruffian, and one of the world's all-time influential sires, Northern Dancer. That, my friends, is the story of the Gray Ghost, truly a legend in thoroughbred racing.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Dear racing fans, we've been waiting for you. We've been working, prepping, training, putting together thrilling races, new spaces, favorite traditions, and fresh experiences. From right on the rail to the top of the hill. Whether it's your first meet or your 50th, we can't wait to welcome you back this spring. Love, Keeneland.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
First Mission keeps running up the inside. First Mission grabs the lead. First Mission, Luis Saez to win it.
Remembering the impressive Lexington Stakes victory for Darley Stallion First Mission, a win that makes him your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion First Mission. No horse since 2003 has run a higher buyer than First Mission in the Lexington Stakes. His first of 4 career graded wins. His 109 buyer in the Grade 2 Oaklawn Handicap makes him the fastest freshman to retire for $10,000 or less in the past 5 years. First Mission stands for a 2026 fee of $10,000 Stanton Nurses. Learn more about First Mission and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
But there's a quarter mile to go. They're coming to the top of the short stretch. French Friction, Percy's bar just runs up to the inside and takes the lead as they turn for home. Zany still third toward the outside, and Star Actress is fourth. A breathtaking move off the far turn for Percy's bar into the final furlong of the Central Bank Ashland. She's 4 lengths clear of Zany. Here's the wire. Percy's bar wins it for Luan Machado. Zany was home second and Star Actress third. French Friction fourth. 1 minute 45.72 seconds.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. 3 weeks away from the Run for the Roses, which means we are inside of 3 weeks until the Run for the Lilies. And the Kentucky Oaks and Percy's bar, after that big win last weekend in the Ashland, is now among the top contenders and the horses to beat when we get to Churchill Downs in just a few weeks' time, and owned by Hat Creek Racing. The principal of that is Gatewood Bell. He is the vice president of racing at Keeneland, and he joins me now to look back on that impressive victory. Gatewood, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you, man?
Doing really well, my friend. You know, my dear friend Kurt Becker, who had the call there for us, he knows where his bread is buttered. Man, he gave her a big call, didn't he?
He did. I mean, the rail just opened up, and Luan knew he had a lot of horse. He knew he had more horse than I thought he had, I guess. And she just shot right through there. But yeah, he maybe he was looking for a bonus or maybe a free lunch or something. But it was a great call. Kurt always gives great calls, but it's more fun when he's saying your horse's name, I guess.
Yeah, one of the best in the business. And we hadn't seen Percy's bar since that third-place finish in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies last October. How impressed were you with that effort that we saw last Friday?
Yeah, I mean, we just had terrible weather here in Kentucky. We turned her out at Asheview for about a month after the Breeders' Cup and brought her back into Ben's barn here at Keeneland in December. He got one work into her, and then I don't think we trained here or anywhere in the state of Kentucky for hell. My kids didn't go to school for 2 weeks, so they didn't train racehorses either for 2 weeks. So we missed. We were planning on running in a prep in late February, early March, and all credit to Ben. He just said we got to scrap the plan, and I'll train her up to it, and she's doing good. We'll just run straight in the Oaks. And I mean, he stuck with it, didn't second guess himself, mapped it out perfectly. And if you saw her breeze, there was a couple of them online. Like, she was working very well. But again, you never know if they're going to improve from 2 to 3, and running against grade 1 fillies off of a 5-month layoff's never an easy task. But she got a good trip and then had her ready to roll.
She did show a lot of maturity. Were you seeing changes in her mentally, physically, from what you saw as a 2-year-old?
Yeah, I mean, she's always mentally been pretty, I wouldn't say bomb-proof, but she's just sweet. Like, she just takes it all in stride. She knows when business is ready to be had, and she knows when she's supposed to relax. So mentally, she's kind of stayed the same. I guess she's matured. I'm sure she's matured. Not all of us mature, but some of us mature with age. And physically, yeah, I mean, she always seemed like one. I mean, I told all the partners in April, like, it was a bonus that we were even running in April. We didn't think she'd be running until midsummer. She's just, I mean, pedigree-wise, and she's a longer filly. She's always had great action, and she's just kind of strengthened up over her hip and over her back, and she's put on some weight. I mean, she's not a big, bull of a filly or anything like that, but she has strengthened up and matured physically for sure.
What's the key now to keeping her at the top of her game over the next few weeks to make sure she's ready for another peak effort in the Kentucky Oaks?
Yeah, well, I hope she's not at the top of her game yet. She'll need to keep getting better to keep running against better horses and in bigger fields. I'll leave that up to Ben. I mean, she likes it here at Keeneland. She's got a lot of seasoning from her 2-year-old year, which is, I think, a big benefit. Obviously starting in April last year, she won a baby race here at 4.5 furlongs, and now she's, one of the Oaks contenders. She shipped to Churchill, did that well. She shipped up to Saratoga, so she's traveled a bunch. She's got 3 two-turn races, so she's got some seasoning from last year. So while it's not ideal just to have one prep going into a big race like that, I think that back seasoning will help her, and we'll just leave it up to Ben. He'll give her a couple breezes here, just kind of like when you get a good horse, you just want to keep them happy and healthy, and they make you look smart usually.
Yeah, and he's done such a masterful job with her throughout her entire career. Why was Ben Colebrook your choice?
I mean, just because he's a buddy. I think he's a good horseman. He doesn't have a ton of horses. All of my partners are basically, I mean, they're just friends from life, and accumulated a few new friends over the years, and most are based in Central Kentucky and Lexington, and just kind of wanted to have some at Keeneland, like we always have, used a bunch of people down there on Rice Road. And, he's a fun dude to have a beer with and ski with. And I think he's a great horseman. And, I don't know. I just kind of center to him.
Yeah.
Sent two others to Wesley Ward that year that kind of, this one looked like it needed a little bit more time. I guess it only needed 2 more weeks, but
yeah, Ben's a fantastic
underrated
trainer.
horseman that's capable, and he's a good dude. That's why.
I agree with all of those comments. He is fantastic, and it was so great to see him celebrate. It was one of the coolest things about that victory for Percy's Bar was what we saw in the winner's circle afterwards. How many people were in the winner's circle, Gatewood?
I should add them up. I mean, I'd say there was about 50 kids under 15, and there might have been 150. Whatever it is, it was that capacity, but we would have spilled over if we needed to. It was great. Yeah, I mean that it brought me a lot of joy watching that winner's circle, because it was just that's the future, and it's giving people experiences that they wouldn't otherwise have, which made it pretty special.
Yeah, I saw Headley post on social media afterwards. Headley Bell, of course, talking about the generational aspect of the game, and that winner's circle picture summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, I mean that's what you remember. That's why you fall in love with whatever you fall in love with. Whether it's, me, one of the things was horse racing and getting to go to the races with my grandparents or my parents and sit in the box. And I remember my first $5 bet, and then my first time I bet $10, and just experiences like that are what create those core memories that might hit you again when you're older and want to buy a horse or want to go to the track or want to bring friends out there, whatever. So it all worked out.
For people that have been going to Keeneland for many years, one of the coolest places to hang out was a bar called Percy's Bar, right? At least because of the bartender. Tell me more about Percy's Bar and the name.
Yeah, it was, what made it cool was the bartender, and then the other,
yes.
He had other good bar staff. It's the mezzanine bar, so it's right up the escalator at Keeneland. He also worked at Churchill, kind of in the what was that, second or third floor there, right behind the boxes, where a bunch of the same kind of crowd would, the regulars, the jocks agents, the trainers, the assistant trainers, some of the exercise, like us, people that come to the races every single day of the meet and bet and look at horses. And no, he was just a character, just one of those great racetrack characters, always so polite and nice and never got afraid. He was kind of like the filly. Like there'd be a line of 50 and 500 drunks in there yelling at him, and he always just had a cool head and served you your drink and wished you luck and asked you who you had in today. And he was just one of those great racetrack characters that was just a kind soul. And he was always put a smile on your face when you saw him. So that's where a bunch of us hang out, and kind of just had always had it in my notes where I have a list of names that I might use, usually like song lyrics and stuff. And it's kind of like, let's use it around him. Cause Ben Colebrook hangs out up there, and a bunch of our buddies hang out up there. So I was like, this will work for the filly with Ben. Obviously I had no idea she would, hope to just run at Keeneland or Churchill, let alone win at both of them.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic stuff. It's such a great story. Gatewood Bell, Vice President of Racing at Keeneland, joining me. Also, the owner of Ashland winner, Percy's Bar, whom we've been talking about throughout the conversation here. The other aspect of this, and I was texting with Brett Jones afterwards, is the connection to Airdrie Stud, who for a very long time has been one of the signature farms in central Kentucky, and they continue to do things the right way, and that's a legacy that Brett's dad, Brereton, laid down at Airdrie for many, many years, and what a story that is, too.
Yeah, I'll hitch my stuff to that way, or my wagon to them on most things, but especially when it comes to raising Oaks fillies. I think
every time
they had 3 Oaks winners in about a 12-year span, and owned and bred, and they do a great job. They raise horses, Ben Henley and Brett, and before that, Brary and Timmy Thornton. And I like the way they raise horses, and they've got great land, and they've got a pretty darn good track record of producing stakes runners, from maybe more modest sire lines than some of the other ones you see on the contenders list. But they outrun their pedigrees a lot of times, and they're great people and do a wonderful job. So I'm always happy to buy one off of them.
Gatewood, let me shift gears and ask you to put on your other hat, the Vice President of Racing hat out there at Keeneland, and talk about what we saw last weekend with a race like the Bluegrass and Further Ado dominating for Brad Cox, and then what's coming up this weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, Further Ado was obviously, it makes a pretty interesting handicapping puzzle, I think, because obviously his two best races, maybe figure-wise, were at Keeneland, like he just romped. But he also is a two-turn winner in a Great Stake at Churchill Downs, which is where they're going to run the Derby next month. And he ran a really sneaky good race down at Tampa. So it's kind of like, did he just freak on the track? Or I'd say it's a little bit of both. I think he's a pretty darn talented horse that obviously likes Keeneland. And then, it was a little unfortunate losing, what would have been probably the favorite and the second or third choice. But that's horse racing, and especially this time of year. So, I mean, take nothing away from Further Ado. He deserved it. And he'll have a big chance in Louisville. I mean, I think most people say it's wide open. I mean, maybe the top 7 or 8 are kind of clear of the next tier, but I think it's a wide open race. And it was a great day of racing. We opened up the new paddock building. It's been very well received. It's beautiful. We've been really lucky with the weather. I think we had 10,000 college students out here yesterday. New rooftop bar. That's not as good of a horse name though as Percy's bar, so we'll probably just stick to only one bar name. But and then we got good weather today and an unreal Jenny Wiley and a very wide open Lexington Stakes. I don't think there's probably any horses that are coming from here to go to the Derby, but they're always that people use this as a gateway to the Preakness or some of those the Matt Winn, some of those summer stakes. So it'll be fun out there today. They're also having Jim Goodman's having his big Grade 1 gamble, like our big handicapping contest up in the new building. So I think he's expecting 300 entries for that. And that's always fun to go watch those guys just scream at TV. That's awesome.
Gatewood, enjoy every minute of it this weekend and enjoy every second of the next 3 weeks. I know it's going to be a special time for you, and all the best when we get to Louisville.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. Well, we got 3 more fun weeks here before that, and then I'll start worrying about Louisville after
you go.
We close down.
Yeah, don't quit your day
Mike.
job.
Appreciate it always.
Appreciate it, Gatewood.
That's not happening.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, cheers, buddy. Cheers.
See you. Gatewood Bell. Yeah, fantastic story there, and Percy's bar pointed now for the Kentucky Oaks. Quick update. He mentioned the favorites that they lost, the top choices that were expected to take on Further Ado in the Bluegrass Stakes. Of course, Paladin, as we talked about earlier, going to the sidelines. He was pointed for that race. Class President also being scratched from that one, but he wasn't taking out of Derby consideration quite yet, even though he wouldn't run in the Bluegrass. But Elliott Walden of WinStar tweeting this out yesterday, that Class President is going to get 60 days off for bone bruising. He had all diagnostics and perfect x-rays and revealed no surgeries were needed. And he wishes everybody good luck in the Kentucky Derby at this very special time of year. So a class act, Elliott Walden at WinStar, but Class President not going to be participating in this year's Run for the Roses. When I come back, it's time for this week's edition of Calling All 3-Year-Olds, presented by Spendthrift. And I'll get you ready for what's coming up in Hour 2 and Hour 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed for Sales, Kentucky.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go. Almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bag wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff. Like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This is HRRN, where racing comes to talk.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All 3-Year-Olds with Bobby Neuman.
The final of the 100 pointers on the road to the Kentucky Derby took place last weekend. At Keeneland, the Grade 1 Bluegrass lost some luster with the scratch of class president, who still likely has enough points to make the Derby if he's healthy. But he would have had a hard time beating Further Ado. The 4-5 favorite got a nice stalking trip while racing on the outside of horses, moved to the lead before the top of the stretch before drawing clear for an overpowering 11-length score. Otinho picked up the pieces to finish second, which is good enough to get him a ticket to Louisville. At Santa Anita, the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby turned out to be a thrilling stretch duel between undefeated favorite Potente and once beaten So Happy. The former battled for the lead throughout before putting away the other speed on the far turn, but the former was fresh and proved too much down the lane. So Happy drew out to win by almost 3 lengths, while Potente easily held the place. Expect to see them both the first Saturday in May. At Aqueduct, the final Grade 2 Wood Memorial to be run at the famed Jamaica Oval saw a fast early pace due in all the speed types, including the top 3 betting choices. Recent Tampa maiden breaker Albus closed from 11 lengths back to get the win for trainer Riley Mott, while long shots Right to Party and Ocelli completed the trifecta. Only 1 points qualifier left for the 2026 Kentucky Derby, today's Grade 3 Lexington Stakes at Keeneland. There are 20 points available to the winner, but spoiler alert, none of the 11 horses entered have enough points to make the Derby, even with a win today. With 2 spots guaranteed to the European/Middle East path and 1 spot delegated to Japan, there are 17 Kentucky Derby spots for the U.S. runners. As of now, there are 4 horses with 50 points each, tied for the final 2 spots. Those are Chief Wallaby, Class President, Iron Honor, and Stark Contrast, with Chip Honcho just behind him at 49. For the first time ever, 50 points might not be enough to get in the big race. The tiebreakers go to the horses with the highest earnings in unrestricted stakes. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
He's one of the most accomplished 2-year-old champions ever.
Forte, on to victory here in the Grade 1 Hopeful.
He's a TDN Rising Star, a 5-furlong debut winner in May, a 3-time Grade 1 winning juvenile from 7 furlongs to 1 mile and a 16th.
And Forte to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
He's a Florida Derby winner, a Fountain of Youth winner, a Jim Dandy winner at 3.
The champion prevails. Forte wins the Florida Derby.
He's Forte. Look for first yearlings this year.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Wonder Dean tracked down a lonely leader in Dubai, and Japan runners have proven that they're serious threats when racing in the U.S. Number 4, the Puma continues to fire big shots every time he runs. Hard to deny his talent. Number 3, Chief Wallaby, got outmoved in the Florida Derby while racing on the bad part of the track. He still has room to improve if he gets into the Kentucky Derby. Number 2, Commandment, big wins in 3 major 3-year-old stakes at Gulfstream. If he carries that form to Churchill, he's a major player. And number 1 is Renegade. His stretch runs in the Sam Davis and Arkansas Derby were super impressive. He deserves to be the Kentucky Derby favorite. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Old segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
Going to continue to talk more Derby in the second hour of the program. David Aragona of the Daily Racing Form set to join me in just a couple of minutes to kick it all off for you. Dan Ward going to join me right around 9:20. We will look ahead to this afternoon's Apple Blossom coming up at Oaklawn. And then Lee Pokoik, the breeder of Florida Derby winner Commandment, will join me for this week's Kentucky Bred conversation at the end of hour 2, right around 9:40 Eastern. So plenty of Derby conversation still ahead. Ashley Anderson kicks off hour 3, 10 Eastern, with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, remembering the great Gopher Wand, comes your way at 10:20. And at 10:30, the final segment of the show, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, always popular. They will be here again this morning to talk about some of the hottest topics in the game. I'm going to tell you about Tony's of Lexington, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently for you here this morning. Usually I tell you how great the stakes are, the atmosphere, and I tell you get your reservations during Keeneland and beyond because they're going to fill up and they're going to be busy. But I received an email this morning before the show from a listener down in Tennessee who went to the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland last weekend and, based on my recommendation, attended Tony's after the races with his family. And he said, quote, it was phenomenal. Said he got the Sir Barton, and it was, quote, incredible. I told you, it's a serious stake, and it's really good. Went on to say, thanks for the recommendation. We will definitely be back. You heard it from somebody else, not from me. Go see all the great people at Tony's of Lexington. They are fantastic, and they will take wonderful care of you, and the food is amazing. Back with hour number 2, right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of 3. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. Happy to have you along for the ride on this Saturday morning, 3 weeks away from the Run for the Roses. David Aragona, who does a great job with the Daily Racing Form Derby Watch. You can go to drf.com/derby-watch to learn more about their selections and his picks, but going to talk to him coming up in just a few minutes. And I'll ask him the same question I'm asking you with our poll question this morning. Which horse, not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado, is your Kentucky Derby pick? So far, the Puma getting a lot of respect. 3 votes on social media, all for the Puma. And I guess you can see that after that huge effort behind Commandment in the Florida Derby. And I think the Puma is a serious horse. And like all of the other contenders on the first Saturday in May, going to have to prove that form is legit going a mile and a quarter. But that's a question everybody has to answer. Sean in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, sends in and says, So Happy is the horse that he's looking at as the winner, not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado. You can keep those responses coming at HRRN on X. You can do it Horse Racing Radio Network on our Facebook page. And if you don't do social media, just do exactly what Sean did. Email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. And I will go ahead and pass along the results coming up for you here shortly. All right, efforting, as they say, David Aragona, which gives me an opportunity as we await David here on the program to update the poll question for you this morning. Not the poll question, excuse me. Our Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question. That's the one I want to update for you here this morning. All right, and here it is. And it's a tough one. What horse ran the slowest ever Kentucky Derby? In what year? And what was the final running time? What horse ran the slowest ever Kentucky Derby? In what year? And what was the final running time? Boy, that's a tough one. Get your mojo working. I will reveal the answer at the end of the program, right around 10:55 Eastern Time. A lot of angles that you can go with to answer the poll question this morning. And I know the Puma, and I expected the Puma to be a popular choice after that huge effort behind Commandment. And I'm not surprised that So Happy is getting a little love. And I mentioned that's going to be the story of the Kentucky Derby from a human interest perspective. But what about Incredible, the Virginia Derby winner? Wins the Street Sense at Churchill as a 2-year-old. So has some credentials there, not only over the track, but around 2 turns and in a graded stakes race. And then after his clunker in his 3-year-old debut, he comes back and wins the Virginia Derby, 1 1/8. I know it's a 1-turn 1 1/8, and I think that could be a key reason why a lot of people are going to overlook Incredible. But when you look further back, you see the successful form around 2 turns in Graded Stakes Company, and you say, okay, maybe he is a legitimate player. And listen, when you look at the picture, and Gatewood Bell just summed it up perfectly talking about Further Ado. He said it's pretty wide open in terms of the Derby picture, but there are a few horses that have kind of elevated themselves above the others. Renegade, Commandment, Further Ado, which is why I'm asking the question this way. And I think Incredible can be a legitimate price horse that has an impact, and who knows, maybe takes the whole thing. Wouldn't be shocked if we get some more votes for a horse like Incredible, or maybe Silent Tactic from the barn of Mark Casse. Here's a horse that wins the Southwest Stakes, second in the Rebel, second in the Arkansas Derby, behind, oh, by the way, Renegade. And Renegade, a lot of people thinking now that he is going to be the favorite in this year's Kentucky Derby. Wouldn't be shocked if he is, especially now that Erod Ortiz Jr. has chosen to ride Renegade over Commandment and Further Ado, who he's also ridden in their careers many, many times. But he feels like Renegade is his best chance to win the Kentucky Derby for the very first time. Coming up in the next week or two, going to try and visit with Steve Rushing, who is the agent for the Ortiz brothers, both Erod and Jose. And I'm going to ask him about making that type of a decision. When you have 3, I mean, let's face it, the 3 favorites for the Kentucky Derby, and your guy has ridden all 3, and you have to make that decision. How do you do it? What factors do you do? I mean, I guess you got to listen to Erod, and you got to go by what he tells you, what he's feeling underneath him, and which horse he feels is best suited for the 1 1/4. But it's an interesting, I think, give and take between a jockey agent and one of the premier riders in the game. So you'll hear from Steve Rushing coming up in the next week or 2 here on the program. Was texting with him yesterday, and he will make time to join us. So I think you're going to enjoy that conversation. A lot to get into with him, as there is with David Aragona. And he joins us right now here on HRN. David, good morning, brother.
Good morning.
3 weeks away from the Run for the Roses. You have been busy every single week with the DRF Derby Watch. And it's an interesting Derby picture right now, isn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, you got 3 favorites that are probably going to be similar prices. It kind of feels like Renegade's the one that's been anointed as the likely public choice for the Kentucky Derby, but they're all talented horses, and it's one of those derbies where it does feel like there's quite a bit of quality at the top.
Yeah, it does. Renegade, Commandment, and Further Ado. And I'm asking our listeners the poll question this morning, and I was just kind of walking through some of the potential answers. Which horse not named Renegade, Commandment, Further Ado is a horse that can win the Kentucky Derby? If I ask you that question, which other horses do you have your eye on?
I think a popular answer might be the Puma, who was the narrow second-place finisher in the Florida Derby behind Commandment. I think a lot of handicappers would say he ran just as well as that horse in defeat, and he goes out for connections that have won the Kentucky Derby before. So he's kind of a natural next choice, but an underrated horse could be the California shipper, So Happy, who got a pretty nice speed figure when he won the Santa Anita Derby last weekend. So he seems like a player as well. And then you got Chief Wallaby going out for the trainer that won the Derby last year, Bill Mott, another horse who was coming out of that very strong Florida Derby. So it's not like one of these three favorites has to win the race. There's quality right below them.
Yeah, Potente was getting a lot of respect, too, coming into the Santa Anita Derby, and a lot of people were looking at him as a potential star that could get up into the upper echelon with horses like Commandment and Renegade and Further Ado. Have you lost any faith in him? Do you still feel confident that he could be a horse to contend with?
I think you have to lose a little confidence given the way he just kind of failed to finish in the final furlong of the Santa Anita Derby, which brings up maybe some questions about how far he wants to go. But I mean, he is Bob Baffert's only Kentucky Derby qualifier this year, and Bob's done some pretty nice things in the Derby over the years. So you'd be reluctant to just totally dismiss his chances, but I think the fact that Bob Baffert is attached to this horse's past performances might end up driving down the price a little bit.
I feel like Virginia Derby winner Incredibolt is a completely forgotten horse, and I think that could be a mistake if you're looking for a big price on the first Saturday in May.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the bettors do with him because I agree. You look at his past performances, and he feels like the kind of horse that should be a long shot in the Kentucky Derby. But you're right. He was visually impressive winning that Virginia Derby last time. And, that Churchill Downs form from a 2-year-old season can go a long way with a lot of the bettors in the Kentucky Derby. And he's got that. He actually won the same stakes race, the Street Sense, that Sovereignty took down before winning the Kentucky Derby when he developed as a 3-year-old last year. So I feel like Incredibolt is a horse that might take some more money in this Derby than people realize.
If people go to DRF.com and they look up Derby Watch, they're going to find your comments along with Dave Grenning's comments on all of the top contenders for this year's Kentucky Derby. One of those horses is Silent Tactic, who will look to give dual Hall of Famer Mark Casse his first Derby victory. Your comment talking about Silent Tactic says, "Don't love that his progression appears to have stalled, but he does have the right kind of style for the Derby."
Yeah, you look at his past performances, and he was improving in every race, right up until that Rebel performance where he just missed to class president, and you were hoping to see maybe another bit of incremental improvement in the Arkansas Derby last time, and didn't quite come. I mean, Renegade obviously won that race impressively, but, given the way that Silent Tactics finished so impressively when he won the Southwest, you would have hoped that he could put up a little bit of a fight when Renegade challenged him, and he wasn't able to. So it felt like it was not a step forward that you were hoping to see with a horse that is developing towards the Kentucky Derby. So I do wonder if maybe he's a cup below the top 3-year-olds. But if this is one of those Derbies where the pace really heats up early and it falls apart to some closers, Silent Tactic feels like one of those horses that could pick up the pieces.
David, which region of the country would you say appears to have the strongest contingent of Kentucky Derby contenders?
I mean, people talk about past history and, going back over the years, some, series of years, Oaklawn's had the best horses. In the early 2000s, people said Fairgrounds had the best horses. I mean, that'll change over time. I like to look at it year by year. And I think this season, the most concentration of talent was in Florida. I mentioned that Florida Derby producing 3 major contenders for the Kentucky Derby. And I just think that's the natural choice. If you look at speed figures, those are where some of the fastest preps took place, and also the most contentious races.
I know you spend a lot of time looking at the races in New York as the morning line odds maker for NYRA in those races. What do you make of the horses coming out of the Wood Memorial this year?
I mean, I'd love to make a case for them. Got to see the Wood in person. It was an exciting race to watch. However, it just was not a fast race against the clock. It did not look like a strong field going into the race, at least as far as Kentucky Derby implications go. And the winner, Albus, it was nice to see him navigate traffic and worked out a different trip than he did when he broke his maiden. But he's just never earned a speed figure, nor has anybody coming out of the Wood Memorial that would point them out as a major contender in this Kentucky Derby.
See, I feel the same way about the horses in Louisiana. I don't think the Louisiana Derby was the strongest Derby prep by a long shot. Emerging Market was very impressive coming out of a maiden win in his debut, and then he jumps up and wins the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. But I'm not sold on horses like Pavlovian and Golden Tempo. Am I wrong?
I would agree with that. I guess the one positive case you could make for Emerging Market is that he's so lightly raced, and there could be more improvement coming from him, which is a little harder to say about a horse like Pavlovian, who's already run 10 times. Then again, the history of horses who've only raced twice, making their next race in the Kentucky Derby, isn't so strong, and it can be pretty tough to show improvement or further development when you're encountering a new situation like facing 19 other 3-year-olds. So Emerging Market has those things working against him, but I will note Flavien Prat, who did ride one of the Kentucky Derby favorites in the final round prep Commandment, he's going to stick with Emerging Market for the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, interesting. I don't get the lack of love on the rider side of things for a horse like Commandment, who's won the Florida Derby, the Fountain of Youth, the Mucho Macho Man, and hasn't lost since his debut last October at Keeneland.
I mean, anybody who's talked to me over this Kentucky Derby trail knows that I've been a big fan of Commandment the whole way along, so I don't quite get it either. I think rather than, jockeys making last-minute decisions, I think it's been more circumstantial, where Flavien Prat's just kind of been committed to Chad Brown, given their long-standing relationship over this Kentucky Derby trail, and he was going to ride his Paladin in the Derby, who's off it, so I think they're just sticking with that loyalty for Chad with Emerging Market. And, IRAD, for whatever reason, his agent made a very early commitment to Renegade and has stuck to it for this entire Derby trail, and maybe he's made the right choice from early on. But I don't think that there was some last-minute decision to get off Commandment. I just think he didn't really have the option when that horse got good.
Of the big three, Commandment, Further Ado, Renegade, which one has impressed you the most?
I would say Commandment, just given the way that he's beaten the best competition, he's worked out different trips, he's kind of shown the mental fortitude to navigate traffic. So he's my answer, but I do think it's pretty close. They've all shown quality, and it just comes down to which one you trust the most to show up on the day.
Have the connections of Further Ado lobbied to have the Kentucky Derby moved to Lexington and Keeneland?
I'm sure they would love if they could get that late change because he's run his two best races by far, about 60 miles to the east at Keeneland. But he is a horse that has shown maybe a higher ceiling than anybody else in this field. So if it is true that he's just gotten good, as he showed in last month's Bluegrass, he can win this race. And he's the kind of horse that is probably going to stay out of trouble in terms of trip because he's got a little more natural early speed than his two main rivals. But, you do have to wonder if he can run quite as well at a different racetrack.
The Breeders' Cup is being held at Keeneland this year. I wonder if Further Ado is a horse that people should be looking at as the horse to beat in the Breeders' Cup Classic now.
Could be. It's still a long way off to see how these 3-year-olds develop, and you never really know what's going to happen after they run in the Kentucky Derby. But no, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm kidding, of course, but it's an interesting scenario that could unfold if Further Ado continues to develop and stays healthy and gets to the Breeders' Cup Classic, taking on older horses. That could be a lot of fun to watch, considering his performances there in Lexington, Kentucky. David, man, I appreciate it. As always, you do a fantastic job both at NYRA and with the Daily Racing Form, and we'll encourage people to visit drf.com to read your thoughts and Dave Grenning's thoughts as well with the Derby Watch.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you taking the time. David Aragona, fantastic stuff here on HRRN, really on top of it. And he's been watching these 3-year-olds, like a lot of us, but he's been really studying these 3-year-olds throughout the entire season, even going back to their 2-year-old campaign. So when he starts writing about it, and same thing with Dave Grenning, you better pay attention because they really do a fantastic job. When I come back, we're going to shift gears down to Oaklawn. Going to visit with trainer Dan Ward next. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
Dear racing fans, we've been waiting for you. We've been working, prepping, training, putting together thrilling races, new spaces, favorite traditions, and fresh experiences. From right on the rail to the top of the hill. Whether it's your first meet or your 50th, we can't wait to welcome you back this spring. Love, Keeneland.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And the two Mark Casse entrants are together here. Lacara off the turn. Nitrogen there on the outside. Majestic Oops at 9-1, trying to pull off a surprise here down the lane. Nitrogen has swallowed up her stablemate, but she's got to deal with Majestic Oops. Majestic Oops has got the lead, and inside the 16th pole, she's trying to put away Nitrogen. It's Majestic Oops. She has put away Nitrogen. Regaled coming on late. Majestic Oops. Francisco Arrieta for the Dan Ward barn to win the Azeri at 9-1.
Matt Dinnerman with the call. The Azeri Stakes going to Majestic Oops, upsetting champion Nitrogen that day, and everybody else with a huge effort to win in the slop at Oaklawn back on March 7th. She looks to duplicate that effort coming up this afternoon in the Grade 1 Apple Blossom. Post time for that race as race number 10 is 6:47 Eastern, so 5:47 locally down in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And she has her work cut out for her again today. And if you recall, Dan Ward joined me on this program the morning of March 7th, right before Majestic Oops upset the Azeri. And I remember during our conversation, Dan was sitting in his barn. Training had been halted because there were thunderstorms in the area. It was pouring. When they say raining cats and dogs, it was absolutely doing that at Oaklawn that morning. Dan actually took the phone, held it outside of his barn door so I could hear the rain, and you could hear the rain on the radio. And boy, you couldn't miss it. It was unmistakable. And then she goes out and handles the sloppy track just fine to get the victory at 9-1. The 6-year-old Calbred back in action today. She's 9-2 on the morning line. Going to be really fun to watch this unfold. Not only does she get a rematch against champion Nitrogen, but squares offered Regaled as well, who was second in that race. Keep in mind, Nitrogen wasn't even second. Nitrogen was third that day. Nitrogen, 9-5 on the morning line. She's still the champ. She's still the horse to beat in this race. But Dan Ward has to feel pretty confident in Majestic Oops now that she has shown that, yes, she can do this. She can beat Nitrogen and everybody she's going to face again today. And he's with me now here live from Oaklawn Park on this Saturday morning. Dan, good morning, brother.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing really well, my friend. And, it was interesting. I sent you a note after she won the Azeri, and I congratulated you, and you said make sure that I contacted you this morning for this show because I brought you good luck. Nobody's ever said that to me before. I've never been somebody's good luck charm man.
Would I be the first person that's superstitious in this business? Probably not.
I got to tell you, though, I tried to get you to go in the same time slot this morning that we were in last time. You're going a little later.
Okay. Yeah, I got workers right after the break, so perfect timing. We timed it perfect.
How impressive was that effort in the Azeri?
Very impressive, because she broke 2 lengths on top, and the rider was smart enough just to sit on her, let everybody go, because the only bad races that she has on her form are when you send her the first part. So he knew enough to just sit on her and tuck her into a good spot. And this race came up with a few more speed horses, so I think we're going to get a good trip.
Yeah, she loves Oaklawn Park now. 8 starts, 4 wins, and 2 seconds coming into today's race. That has to make you feel pretty good, too.
Absolutely. I've sent 3 for 3 with the rider, and the only 2 races she was out of the money, she was head and head for the lead the first part. So we know not to do that, and he knows. So I'm looking forward to it.
I was just telling the story about us talking before the Azeri on the same program, and I remember it was raining heavily that morning, and training had been halted, and you held the phone outside your barn door so I could hear the rain. Only a 1% chance of rain today.
It's okay. She's run good on a fast track, too.
Yeah, she certainly has. So Nitrogen is now going to give you her best shot. I know you got it last time, but they have their sights set on you. You're kind of the hunted, not the hunter anymore, right?
I think we'll be hunting them, because we can sit anywhere and be tactical, and she likes to have a target, and she's going to be finishing strong.
Dan, what have you seen from her since that win in the Azeri that gives you that kind of confidence that she can handle Nitrogen again?
Well, she's just going so relaxed, and she goes out and gallops and doesn't do too much, and we work her usually out to the 7/8 pole, so she knows when to run the last quarter of a mile, and she seems to like that. She seems to settle really good, either inside or outside. Last year I wasn't sure if she liked the inside, but one time he tucked her in on the inside and then tipped her out in the stretch, and then she took off. So we just need a good, clean trip, and I think she's going to finish good.
What's her greatest strength?
Very, very classy. When she goes over to run, she just stands there. Saddle never gets hot. Goes out on the track, just walks around and saves it for the race. She doesn't lose the race before she gets in the gate.
How cool is it to celebrate with the ownership group involved with Majestic Oops?
It's going to be good. They're very smart people, and I appreciate that they left her in my care and even brought her back to run as a 6-year-old this year, because that was in doubt. And they said, we're going to try her as a 6-year-old, and we're going to try her at Oaklawn where she likes it, and we're going to leave her with you. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Tell me more about the ownership group, Dan.
They're smart people. They claim good horses, and they buy horses, and they're very successful partnership.
Yep. Yeah, they do a great job. And now here they are with a tremendous 6-year-old mare in Majestic Oops. Is it safe to say, Dan, that she potentially is still getting better?
Yes. Somebody told me pointed out last night, that if she would win, she would be pretty close to the top earning female Calbred of all time. I didn't know that.
Really?
So, yeah. Yep. That's what I heard.
Yeah,
not of all time, but female. I think that that's what I heard. I'm going to investigate that to make sure, but that would be pretty special.
Well, if she can win, she'll push her earnings up over the $1 million mark, and that in itself would be really special.
Right. Absolutely. All
right, Dan, what's the key to victory this afternoon? How do you see it unfolding?
Well, there's a lot of speed, and we just got to get ourselves in a relaxed stalking position and then get her in the clear when it's time to run, and we trust the rider to do that.
Outside of Mark Cassie and Nitrogen, who breaks just here inside, by the way, in post position number 1, Majestic Oops is in post 2. Size up the rest of the competition. Regaled, who you beat last time, is in here again. Tell me about the rest of the competition.
Well, Regaled is very good. She beat us twice. Once in the mud at Delaware, and then she ran a good race in the Breeders' Cup, and she ran very well the other day. She's a tough horse to beat, and there's more speed to set it up for her, so we got to watch out for her. And Claire Beret, Safi's very tough shipping horses from Florida here because they come in fit and ready, and they run well, so she's tough. And then, of course, you got Nitrogen, very, very, very good horse, and it's a good field. I like the fact that there's more speed to set it up for us, and we're just looking for some racing luck and a good trip.
Dan, what's the plan for you for the rest of the summer? Where are you going after Oaklawn?
Probably Churchill.
Okay. And Majestic Oops will be with you, I would imagine.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully. I hope so. But we're focused on today and really trying to give a good race and reward them for their support and try to get the Grade 1.
Dan, you do a great job. Keep it rolling. All the best with Majestic Oops this afternoon, and I can only hope I bring you good luck one more time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You got it, Dan. Dan Ward here on HRRN. Yeah, nobody ever says that to me. I told you earlier, I grew up with the nickname The Mush, and I'm still called The Mush by a lot of people that know me in betting circles. But Majestic Oops is a horse I couldn't jinx. Couldn't jinx Pretty Mischievous when she ran in the Kentucky Oaks. I occasionally, the Mush gets it right. Now, is this a much tougher assignment for Majestic? I know she's facing the same horses. I know it's the same distance and all of those things. But this just feels different than the Azeri. You felt coming into the Azeri, okay, Nitrogen was the horse to beat. She came out of that big win in the Bayakoa, and she looked like the champion that she is. And Majestic Oops was stretching out off of a 6-furlong win in the American Beauty. But Dan was really confident. And you just kind of felt, okay, if it's going to happen, it could happen today in the Azeri, and it did. This just feels different. You feel like Nitrogen now. I know she has the inside post, but she's the champ. She's all class. And you just feel like Mark Casse is going to have her sitting on go. He's not going to let that happen again. We'll find out. Again, that's race number 10 at Oaklawn this afternoon. Post time 6:47 Eastern, 5:47 Central, so 3:47 for all of you listeners out there on the West Coast. Fun story. Going to hear another fun story when we come back. Our Kentucky-bred conversation talking about Kentucky-bred Commandment with breeder Lee Pokoik, who's been doing this for more than 3 decades and can now find himself on his way to the Kentucky Derby with a horse that, from the jockey side of things, doesn't seem to be getting a lot of respect. He's going to have another different jockey in the Kentucky Derby with Luis Saez, but Commandment's been really, really good. 1-4 in a row. Fountain of Youth has been the most productive Derby prep race. Maybe Lee Pokoik can find himself standing in the winner's circle and a dream come true. We'll talk to Lee next on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
This is HRRN, where racing comes to talk.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And they're off. It's a new era for the Maryland Jockey Club at Laurel Park. The new Pimlico Racecourse will honor more than 151 years of racing history while embracing a bold, modern future. And now more than ever, it pays to be Maryland bred. With more than $17 million in added incentives offered annually, Maryland is one of the most attractive and sustainable jurisdictions for racing locally bred horses. Be part of the new era. Visit Pimlico.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're an eighth of a mile from home, but this one's over. Under light handling, here's the son of Into Mischief. Here's Commandment for trainer Brad Cox, living up to the odds-on hype. Commandment draws away to win the Mucho Macho Man by 5 lengths. The Red Sea parts for Commandment, and he's charging after Chief Wallaby to the first finish line. Commandment on the inside, Chief Wallaby to the outside. Commandment with the momentum. Chief Wallaby makes him earn it. Commandment, Chief Wallaby. Commandment wins the Fountain of Youth. The 4 big shots with an eighth of a mile more to decide it. The Puma has the lead. Running at him from the outside is Commandment. In between horses, Chief Wallaby. A thrilling finish to the Florida Derby. Here comes Commandment. The Puma tries to turn him back. It's a win photo. It's an inch and a half either way. It's the Puma on the inside. It's Commandment on the outside.
That's a Pete Aiello montage of Commandment winning the Mucho Macho Man, the Fountain of Youth, and the Florida Derby. He swept them all. And the last one, ultra impressive, having to dig it out and defeat the Puma, the Tampa Bay Derby winner, who gave him all he wanted. But Commandment found a way to win, and that's what great horses do. Great athletes might not always have their A game, but they find a way to grind out victories and put themselves in contention. We're seeing that at the Masters tournament, right? How many times have you seen a golfer competing in the Masters not have their best stuff, but find a way to hang in there? We saw it over the first 2 days of the tournament. There were plenty of golfers, even yesterday, that didn't have their A stuff, but they're so good, they were able to keep themselves in the hunt and then eventually put enough good shots together, put enough birdies together, whatever the case might be, make enough putts to get themselves into the mix for the weekend. And one of those golfers could very well find themselves wearing a green jacket coming up on Sunday. It's the same thing with a horse like Commandment. Ran a really, really strong race in the Florida Derby, but had to work for it. And that's okay. And I think that could serve him well going into the Kentucky Derby. You're going to hear from his breeder, Lee Pokoik, coming up in just a few minutes. He'll join us shortly. Gives me a chance to update the results of the poll question here this morning. More of a question of the day, if you will, than a multiple choice poll. But I'm asking you, who is your Kentucky Derby pick not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado? I told you the Puma was getting a lot of respect, and rightfully so. But more votes are coming in on our X page, and Incredible now in the mix. Bob going with Incredible. Chris says maybe a bit of a stretch, but if Incredible can get an early lead, he should have a shot. And Mark chimes in and says Emerging Market, the Louisiana Derby winner, is the horse that he will look for to pull off a victory, a horse not named Commandment, Renegade, or Further Ado. Again, you can go to our X page at HRRN if you want to cast your vote that way. You can also do it on Facebook, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show, and I was just reading that email. That's what Paul has done. Paul from California says, if Pavlovian gets an easy lead, he's going to be tough to catch. There you go. Pavlovian getting into the mix. Doug O'Neill. He knows how to win the Kentucky Derby. We talk about Bob Baffert all the time and his success, and rightfully so. But how about Doug O'Neill? I'm sure he'll have another. He would love that, wouldn't he? Keep those votes coming. I'll pass along more results later in the program. What a story, though, for Lee Pokoik. If Commandment can take him there, and listen, these are, and I'm going to ask Lee about that. Now, he's not the owner of the horse, but he's the breeder. And I'm sure even for the breeders, when they have horses going to a race like the Kentucky Derby, you're holding your breath over the next 3 weeks. You want to make sure that everything goes perfectly, and it has to go perfectly. Nick Zito, multiple Kentucky Derby winner, Hall of Fame trainer, was on this show with me last week. And I asked him, Nick, why is it that the Kentucky Derby is such an incredibly difficult race to win? And he laid it out perfectly, talking about how you can't, essentially, the saying goes, you can't have a straw in your path. You can't have any hiccups. Your horse can't cough. He has to eat well every single day. Everything has to go according to plan to be among the 20 destined 3-year-olds on the first Saturday in May. And I can imagine, I know I've talked to plenty of owners over the years that are just holding their breath. You know, that Commandment worked yesterday at Churchill. And you're just hoping that everything goes well, that he comes out of the work well. And he'll have a couple of more. And then when you get to that final workout, usually the Saturday or Sunday before the race, and so many owners and media members and trainers and jockeys are out there in the morning to watch your horse, and you're just hoping, let everything go. You're so close at that moment. One more work to go. Just let everything go according to plan. Make sure another horse doesn't get loose on the track. Make sure your horse doesn't take a bad step. Make sure the jockey doesn't go, the exercise rider doesn't go too fast or too slow. It's such a fine line, and precision is so important, and luck plays a huge part of it, whether we want to admit it or not. Getting to the Kentucky Derby not only requires what Nick Zito said, but it also requires a lot of luck. Really looking forward to this conversation with Lee coming up. By the way, gives me a second here as we're efforting Lee. Gives me a second to congratulate Kinnan LaRose. Now, Kinnan was a guest on Trainer Talk with me a few weeks ago. He took over for Tom Amos, who is now retired. Tom's still hanging around the barn and helping out Kinnan with the transition. But Kinnan got his first winner yesterday at Keeneland, the first career winner for the former college basketball star. And it's a cool story. If you missed that conversation, head back and check out the podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net. His story is excellent. And I had told you on this very same program, after I spoke with him on Trainer Talk, that you just got the feeling that he has that it factor to be successful in this game. And yesterday, he gets his first career victory. He's off and running. Chad Brown, number 3,000 yesterday. Good for him. He does it in a grade 1. What a great way to do it. Awesome stuff. Well, I mentioned breeder Lee Pokoik, who is going to join me in just a moment. He's been breeding horses for more than 3 decades, and now he has his ultra-talented Kentucky-bred Commandment, who can take him to the Kentucky Derby for the first time. And he's set to join me for this week's Kentucky-bred conversation. This segment presented every week by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders Incentive Funds, which paid a record $20 million in awards to breeders participating in the KBIF program last year for racing in 2025. I'll tell you more about that program in just a minute, but let's talk with Lee. Lee, good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
Looking forward to hearing the story of Commandment, and let's just start with the fact that in 3 weeks you could be sitting at Churchill Downs watching Commandment load into the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby. What does that look like in your head?
Well, it's the first time that I've ever been to a Kentucky Derby. Of course, I've watched it many times on TV, but this is the first time that I have any connection to a horse that will be running in the Kentucky Derby. So I'm going, along with members of my family.
It'll be a very special day. The mare, Sippacan Harbor, is an Orb mare. You go to Into Mischief, and here's Commandment. Tell me about how this mating came together.
Well, I try to breed very well-bred fillies to very well-bred stallions, of which Into Mischief is one. And hopefully the resulting mating will result in a foal that will be very saleable should I decide to sell it. I normally do not keep colts, so I sell all the colts that I breed, and I will keep some of the fillies if they don't bring my reserve price, and I'll race them. And that's basically what happened with Sippacan Harbor. I bought her with the intention of reselling her. She didn't meet my reserve, so I kept her and raced her. And the results were a grade 1 win in the spin-away. And she also broke her maiden by 17 lengths. And unfortunately, after those 2 races, she developed some ankle problems, and that was basically the end of her racing career. I kept her as a breeding mare, and she's produced several horses, of which Commandment is the first one to shine, so to speak. I have two more on the ground. One is a Mackenzie, and another one is an Elite Power. The Mackenzie was just born a few days ago. He's a colt. And the Elite Power is a filly. She will get sold probably at Saratoga or Keeneland this summer.
Well, you tried to sell Commandment a couple of times at auction, and he RNA'd the first couple of sales, and then you finally sell him for $500,000 at Keeneland September to Case Clay and his organization for Wathnon Racing. How close, Lee, did you come to hanging on to him after he RNA'd a couple of times?
Well, I almost kept him. I mean, he is a very well put together horse. And I was debating at each one of those sales whether or not I was going to keep him and race him, because he really stood out. But I'm of the opinion that most colts are usually worthless at the end of their racing careers. They don't have any residual value. So that's why I get rid of colts and keep some fillies, because fillies are broodmare prospects, whereas a colt, if he retires sound enough, what does he do? He becomes a riding horse at best. So I don't keep colts. They sell them. But this one I almost kept, because I was on the borderline of breaking my number one rule, which was to sell all of the colts and just keep fillies.
Well, he ends up going to Wathnon and turns out to be one of the favorites for the Kentucky Derby. What's the ride been like for you to sit back as the breeder and watch him have so much success?
Well, I'm more or less a cheerleader. Of course, I want to see this horse do well, not only in the Kentucky Derby, but for the rest of his career, whatever that's going to be. It makes my mare more valuable. And I'll be there rooting for him. So that's basically my interest in Commandment.
Lee, I mentioned at the top of the interview that you've been involved with breeding horses for more than 3 decades now. What first attracted you to the sport of thoroughbred racing? How'd you fall in love?
Well, I've been around horses all of my life. I mean, I started riding when I was about 4 or 5. My father rode, and he took me riding the very first time when I was probably 4 or 5, and I rode all through my high school and college career. I rode hunter jumpers. I did equitation. I did whatever I could do to ride. Worked in various stables, mucking stalls. I never lost my interest in horses. And then probably in the mid-'80s, my kids were riding. They were showing horses, and we had horses at home. We kept them, and kids rode in various horse shows every week. I switched over to racing because I realized that's, where I could pay for this sport. You really couldn't pay for it riding show horses, just spending money. So I decided to get into race horses and see what I could do, and here I am.
Yeah, there's been some success along the way other than Commandment, too. I know you bred, Gunmetal Gray, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he got hurt right before he was to be in the Derby. And I've had several other, really good horses that I've bred along the way. One of which Mary Lou Whitney had, Slew Gin Fizz. I got Rhythm, that famous trainer out in California, ran for a couple of years. Fortunately, he passed away. I'm trying to think of his name. Well, anyway, there have been good horses along the way that I've sold. And again, here I am.
Yeah, here we are on the doorstep again to the Kentucky Derby. Lee, when I reached out and asked you if you'd spend a few minutes with me here on the program, I told you that this segment is sponsored by the KTDF and the Breeders' Incentive Fund, and you were telling me that all of your horses are KTDF, correct?
That's correct. I think it's an excellent program. I only breed horses in Kentucky. I only buy the KTDF horses if I'm going to buy one at a sale to resell. I think that the program, that and the Breeders' Cup, are the two things that you must have.
That's a wonderful program, and there's no place better to breed horses than right there in the bluegrass, right?
That's correct.
What is it about? I've always heard the limestone and the grass and all of these things that make Kentucky special. Is there something else to it, Lee, that makes Kentucky such a great place to breed?
Well, like you just said, I think it's the grass, the limestone, and the topography of the land and the climate that all add to that. And of course, it's a very big industry in Kentucky, more so than any other place. Ocala would be second, I think, and maybe New York third. But I still think that the best horses to be found have to do with the soil, the limestone, the climate, and the care that they receive from the various farms in Kentucky.
All right, Lee, before I let you go, 3 weeks from today, you're sitting with your family at Churchill Downs, and Larry Colmus comes on the call for NBC, and he calls Commandment rolling down the stretch, and he calls Commandment crossing the finish line in front. What do you think that moment's going to be like?
Well, I just hope I don't have a heart attack.
What a great answer. Lee, I hope you get to experience it. I hope you don't have a heart attack, and I hope you get to experience it surrounded by your friends and family. I know it's going to be so special for you.
Yes, sir.
Enjoy every second of the next few weeks, my friend. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, Lee Pokoik here on HRN. And by the way, if you want to read more about Lee and his involvement in the industry, Olivia Newman wrote a nice article about Lee Pokoik on Blood Horse, and you can head back and check it out at bloodhorse.com. It's called Commandment Aims to Fulfill Derby Dream for Pokoik. That's the name of the article. Go check it out. She did a really nice job with her conversation, and really appreciate Lee joining me for this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation. And speaking of that, a record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program last year for racing in 2025. KBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds, winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. Kentucky remains one of the leading racing jurisdictions, paying out $239 million in combined association purse and Kentucky Thoroughbred development funds for an average of more than $112,000 per race and an average field size of 8.8 in 2025. For more information on thoroughbred racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com or register KBIF.com. When I come back, I'll take a look at a few historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend. I'll update you on today's poll question and tell you what's coming up in Hour 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becker. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Ms. Fernandez, what are those tiny things?
Those are what we call amoebas. You can only see them through a microscope.
Wow.
Today's students are tomorrow's great thinkers and innovators. But right now, there's a funding crisis in public schools. Millions of kids go to schools that don't have funding for books, computers, and so much more just because of where they live. You can help change that. Donors Choose is a nonprofit that lets you support students and teachers in your community and beyond. You choose which supplies to support. You could provide first graders with pencils and paper, or other students with their first chapter books, help a music class get a guitar.
You could even supply a classroom like mine with a science project. But what you're really giving is the moment that sparks a brighter tomorrow.
To learn more, please visit DonorsChoose.org. That's DonorsChoose.org. Choose students. Shape the future.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. 2 hours down, 1 to go on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna with you. Stay with me for 1 more hour. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. It's a loaded third hour of the program. And, of course, Dale and Tim coming up toward the end of the show, too. Time to take a look at a couple historical dates in racing history as they apply to this particular weekend. And happy birthday to future Triple Crown champion Citation, who was foaled at Calumet Farm in Lexington, April 11th, 1945. And here's another Citation one for you. Tomorrow, April 12th, 1948, 3 years after he was born, after winning 7 consecutive races, Citation lost the Chesapeake Trial Stakes by a length to Saggy, but rebounded to post 16 consecutive victories, including the Triple Crown. I think that loss maybe just made him mad. 16 consecutive wins. Congratulations to the great Citation. I wonder if that happens with nitrogen today. You heard my conversation with Dan Ward earlier talking about Majestic Oops trying to knock off the champ again. You got to wonder if nitrogen just was a little ticked off that she got beat last time and she comes back with a vengeance today. We'll find out. Let's update the poll question for you here this morning. I've been asking you, and so many of you taking time to respond on social media. Really appreciate it. Here's 3 responses from our Facebook page. Lynn chimes in and says, Silent Tactic and So Happy are 2 horses that she sees as being potential Kentucky Derby winners, not named Renegade, Commandment, or Further Ado. Rodney says Potente, hasn't lost any faith there. And Scott says the Puma. And as you know, the Puma has been a very popular choice here this morning after that gutsy effort, nearly beating Commandment in the Florida Derby. And keep in mind, the Florida Derby is the kingpin when it comes to producing Kentucky Derby winners. So you would be wise to keep an eye on the horses coming from that race. But we're expecting Renegade to be the horse that attracts the most betting action on the first Saturday in May. Of course, that big win by Further Ado last week is going to go a long way toward putting him in the mix as well. Keep the votes coming. I'll update them later in the program. Hour 3 coming up straight ahead. It begins with the TwinSpires Triple Play and Ashley Anderson. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, remembering Go for Wand. I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim. It's all ahead right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
As Charismatic strides forward in the final furlong and wrestles the lead away from Yankee Victor, coming to the line of the Coolmore Lexington is going to be Charismatic in front.
Teppan up through the gearbox now into the final furlong, chased by Wakila, but 6 lengths between them. Nothing like turning the Keeneland lawn into your personal playground. It is all Teppan to win the Coolmore, Jenny Wiley.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
We have another new leader, and this time it's the favorite Whitmore, and he takes charge. He's a length and a half in front of Holy Boss. From the outside, Mo Candy, but Whitmore comes to the final 16, drifts out just a bit, but he's got lengths to work with. Here is Whitmore. Yes!
Into the stretch of the Apple Blossom Handicap. It is Take Charge Lady leading at a length. Aziri digging in with a furlong to go. Take Charge Lady leads it. Aziri trying to get to her. Take Charge Lady is strong. Aziri, the champion, trying one more time. Here she comes down the middle. The champion Aziri, and she does it. A tremendous finish.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Can't get enough Terry Wallace. Welcome back to hour number 3 of the Equine Forum. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch. The show all presented by our friends at TwinSpires. We're going to kick it off momentarily with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Ashley Anderson will join me to give you 3 races to watch and wager on with TwinSpires this afternoon. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, fun story about the brilliant Go for Wand. You'll hear that coming up at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans, with Tim Wilkin. We'll talk about some of the hottest topics in the sport today. You've been listening to conversation throughout the show, throughout the first 2 hours, pertaining to the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley at Keeneland, talking about the Lexington Stakes at Keeneland. And then you've got the Grade 1 Apple Blossom down at Oaklawn today as well. And then the Count Fleet Sprint. So there is big racing taking place, even though the road to the Kentucky Derby is essentially finished because the Lexington Stakes won't have an impact on the Kentucky Derby picture. Those horses that are pointing for the first Saturday in May have their spots reserved, and now it's just a matter of sitting on pins and needles for their connections and making sure that everything goes well between now and that first Saturday in May. If you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the show, check out the podcast on our website, on your favorite podcast platform, and remember to continue to follow us on social media at HRRN on X, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. We kick it off as we do every week. Hour 3 begins with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning.
Excited to talk about the 3 races you have chosen for our listeners today. 2 of them come from Keeneland, 1 from Oaklawn Park. And let's start with that 8th race at Keeneland. It is a maiden special weight event, and you could have gone a lot of different ways in here, but I'm curious to hear which direction you're going to point toward.
Well, you know, I love a maiden special weight puzzle, and I wanted to go for a little bit of a price here. I landed on the number 2, Aragona, who's a bit of a long shot, 10-1. She's a first-time starter for Ian Wilkes, and he's not known as the highest percentage trainer first time out. In fact, just about 5 winners from his last 111 first-time starters. But I still chose to back Aragona, and here's why. She's a $700,000 Saratoga Select yearling sale purchase by Good Magic. Progeny is winning first time out at a 15% clip. And Aragona, her dam, has 2 winners from 2 starters, including You'll Be Back, who was second in the Years End Stakes and the Grade 3 Miss Preakness. So has really, I mean, come on, very quickly as a 3-year-old had those at least runner-up finishes in a graded stakes and a stakes race. And then Aragona working out very sharply at Churchill. Ian Wilkes also off to a great start at Keeneland, has 2 wins and 2/3 from 8 starters. So with the fact that he's come in hot at Keeneland, even though he's a little bit lower percentage with first-time starters, I thought why not go for a little bit of a price here, especially considering the pedigree with Aragona and going to have a really good jockey aboard in Javier Castellano. I know right timing is probably going to be tough for Chad Brown, but he's actually a little cold to start the Keeneland meet, 0 for 6. So I'm going to go with a price and a maiden special weight.
Yeah, and you're okay with the inside post going 7/8 of a mile at Keeneland?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think, helps Aragona save a little bit of ground here. She's, we don't really know what she's going to do first time out, but I'm expecting her to come out very sharp. Her pedigree definitely, sire and dam, sire average winning distance right at that 7 for a long sweet spot, so I'm not worried at all.
Yeah. And not drawing the rail, Aragona breaking from post position 2, so still down toward the inside in this 7 furlong sprint this afternoon. But great value, 10-1 on the morning line. Do you just play her straight? Do you hook her up in some exactas? How do you do it?
I definitely would hook her up in some exactas. There's a lot of upside in this field. I thought the 11 potentially for Kevin Attard could be a good price at post time, 12-1 on the morning line. Dam has 2 winners from 4 starters. I also really like the 10 for Will Walden, another first-time starter who has some very sharp, even a bullet workout March 28th at Turfway Park. The sire is Authentic, who is known as a late bloomer at times, and sometimes progeny can be late bloomers, but I think the 10, especially with how well Will Walden is doing, he's high percentage with first-time starters, debut maiden special weight. I think you have to include the Chad Brown horse at least to come in second. But I think if you want to try to make some money, maybe play the 3 in the underneath in your exacta and try to get a win on top with one of those bigger prices.
Yeah, your top pick, number 2, Aragona. Maybe hook her up with numbers 3, 10, and 11 in that 8th race at Keeneland this afternoon. Good value, again, 10-1 on the morning line for Aragona. How about race number 9? That's the second leg you've chosen. And again, when people go to TwinSpires, they won't see a specific TwinSpires triple play wager. We do this every week on the show, and we talk about 3 races of your choosing, Ashley, and they can bet them any way they want, as long as they're doing it at TwinSpires, of course. Let's talk about the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley. It's a mile and the 16th on the turf course. Really interesting race here. How'd you see it?
Okay, I know I just mentioned that Chad Brown is cold to start the Keeneland meet, but I'm not concerned in the Jenny Wiley. He is known to win this race, and I like the 10, Sagesta. 7-2. I think it's a square price. This is more than fair for a 5-year-old mare who had really done nothing wrong on the turf. Her worst performance was over a yielding turf at Saratoga in the Just a Game. Really don't think we need to worry about there being a downpour and resulting in a yielding turf at Keeneland today. So gets the firm turf, going to be more forwardly placed. There's not a lot of speed in this field. I think Aussie Girl probably goes to the front, and I would expect that maybe Lush Lips is going to sit right in second. So I'm looking for the 10 to have kind of a stalking trip here, something similar to the Matriarch, which she's coming off that win, the Grade 1 Matriarch, which was in November at Del Mar, coming off a 4-month layoff, but not concerned at all. Chad Brown does well off these longer layoffs, and Sagesta actually broke her maiden at Keeneland and then had a very close runner-up at Keeneland from her 2 starts at this track. So I think 7-2 is a great price on her. I think it's very fair, and if I can get something at post time around 7-2, I think that is more than fair value.
Yeah, Chad Brown, so good in this race. He's won the Jenny Wiley a record 7 times. Last year had a 3-year winning streak snapped when he was beaten in this race. He'll try to get back on track. Maybe it is Sagesta who gets the victory. Maybe it's his other horse, Dynamic Pricing, at 6-1. Erod Ortiz Jr. is aboard. Did you like Dynamic Pricing at all?
My only concern was just I don't know how hot the pace is going to be, and Dynamic Pricing tends to come from far back. So that's why I was leaning more towards Sagesta and the fact that, she will be closer in those early stages. And Dynamic Pricing, last year I was in the First Lady at Keeneland and ended up finishing 7th, but improved late. I just worry if if it's not a hot enough pace, that the 5 won't have time to close and get up at the wire.
I talked to Brendan Walsh earlier in the program, and he's not going to be happy you didn't pick one of his horses.
Well, I do like Brendan a lot. And Expensive Queen, I will say that my colleague James Scully on the TwinSpires jury, this was his top pick, is Expensive Queen. She is coming off a win at Fairgrounds, looked really good at Fairgrounds on the Alstall Memorial, and is moving up in class, so has to prove it against tougher. But, if you want to play a Brendan Walsh horse, I mean, the one Expensive Queen does look like a very good chance. She is another late runner, but the way she won in the Alstall Memorial, if she's a little bit closer like she was in that race, I think she has a great shot as well. So play, in your exotics, or if you want to play her to win, I think she is still a really good chance, but I'm going to go with the 10. James Scully likes the 1.
Yeah, and you're not big on the morning line favorite, Lush Lips, another Brendan Walsh trainee who won the QE2 last year at Keeneland. She's 1 for 1 over the surface. You're not big on her to win in this particular spot this afternoon.
It's not that I don't think she's talented. I want to try to beat her. I think at 5-2, there's a lot of talent in here. So if I'm getting a short price on Lush Lips, I just think that she can be beaten, even if there's not a lot of speed. Aussie Girl probably, like I said, gets the early lead, and Lush Lips is going to sit right in second more than likely.
Yep.
But I can make a case for other horses that are going to get me a better price. So I wouldn't fault someone for playing Lush Lips because she has an excellent resume, a 3-win streak coming into this, and was just barely beaten 4 back in a grade 1 at Del Mar. But yeah, I want to find a better price in this field.
We've talked about that quite often over the years on this program, Ashley. Whenever you've joined me, looking for value is the key. Lush Lips might win, but you're not going to get the value that you're going to get with a horse like, say, Jesta, who figures to be a little better price, or one of the others that you mentioned in there. And same thing with the 8th race at Keeneland with number 2 Aragona, 10-1 on the morning line. You have to think that there's going to be plenty of value to be had there. How about race number 8 at Oaklawn? That's the final leg of the triple play. You've chosen the Count Fleet Sprint Handicap, grade 3, purse of $500K, 6 furlongs on the main track. Do we get some value in here?
I believe so. We get 6-1 on number 7, Tejano Twist, and there is so much speed signed on, so many horses that want to go straight to the front. Tejano Twist, getting older, 7 years old, oldest in the field, but still winning graded stakes. He's a late closer, usually close to the finish line, whether he's up in time to win or normally if he's second or third, he's just barely beaten in those instances. He's riding a 2-win streak at Oaklawn, has 6 wins overall at this track, and he's faced some of the rivals in this field in the past. Roll On Big Joe is a favorite. Tejano Twist and Roll On Big Joe have competed against each other a number of times, as well as Booth for Steve Asmussen. The key for me is if you look at the times that Tejano Twist has won, he's had a lot of speed to run into. Usually the opening quarter's around 21 and change. When the pace has been slightly slower, that's when he's settling for those minor awards and beaten, less than a length, but just not up in time. You see Booth in the field, he's going to go right to the front. You also have the stablemate of Tejano Twist, Wendelson, who set the hot pace for Tejano Twist in the Whitmore. So I'm expecting something similar as far as those early fractions that we saw in the Whitmore. I think we're going to get something similar in the Count Fleet Sprint Handicap. So I love Tejano Twist to close late and to win at that 6-1 value.
Such a cool horse. You mentioned the fact he's 7 years old. This will be his 48th career start. You don't see that very often anymore. And if he can find a way to win this race, he's going to push his career earnings over the $2 million mark. Pretty good for a horse that's not necessarily in the national spotlight quite often, but boy, does he show up when they lead him over.
Right? When I was looking at his run line, I couldn't believe 47 starts when I saw it, because I remember just a couple of years ago watching him, and I don't know, it just seemed like it racked up so quickly. And now here we are, he's about to make his 48th start.
And maybe the safest bet with this horse, considering he's 6-1, is to put him anywhere in your trifectas, in any of those 3 positions, because he's raced 17 times at Oaklawn. He's been first, second, or third in 16 of those 17. That's about as good as you're going to get with thoroughbred racing.
Right. He definitely loves Oaklawn. And if you look at his last 4 starts, he's been right there. Either he won or he just barely missed. So, yeah, you have to respect him at Oaklawn Park, absolutely.
All right, Ashley, let's recap the TwinSpires Triple Play, your 3 selections for our listeners on this Saturday morning. Race 8 at Keeneland, you'll take number 2, Aragona, at odds of 10-1. Race 9 at Keeneland, you'll go with number 10, Sagesta, at 7-2. And in race 8 at Oaklawn, the Count Fleet, you'll take number 7, Tejano Twist, at odds of 6-1. And I know there are some things happening at TwinSpires for players this weekend, too.
Yeah, real quickly, I'll go over those. We have the Road to the Kentucky Derby $5,000 win ladder. So opt in at TwinSpires, place $10 single horse win wagers on eligible races at Keeneland, and then winning wagers move you up the win ladder. There's a lot of win in this promo, and the more races you win, the bigger your share of a $5,000 prize pool. We also have a $2,000 late pick 5 hit it and split it at Keeneland on Saturday, and then you get 5 times the rewards points at Keeneland on Sunday if you opt in at TwinSpires, and all wagers at Keeneland count toward those reward points.
All right, there you have it. Ashley Anderson, TwinSpires Triple Play. Ashley, good luck with those 3 races and all the races you're going to play this weekend.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right, appreciate it. Ashley Anderson. Coming up next, our Stroll Through Racing History. That's Kurt Becker. Nobody weaves a story together like Kurt Becker. The segment presented by Keeneland every single week. We certainly appreciate that. Kurt's going to focus on the brilliant Go for Juan. This was a suggestion from one of our listeners. Of course, if you have a story or a horse you want Kurt to cover, he's happy to do it for you. Just send us a note and he'll work it in. That comes up next, and then Dale and Tim still to come, 10:30 Eastern. But if you didn't catch it in the first 2 hours of the program, our Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question for you here this morning. It's a good one, too. What horse ran the slowest ever Kentucky Derby, in what year, and what was the final running time? That really makes it tricky, that last part of it. Challenge yourself. No Googling. The answer comes up at the end of the program right around 10:55 Eastern time. So get your mojo working, see if you can come up with the answer. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History is next on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And they're off. It's a new era for the Maryland Jockey Club at Laurel Park. The new Pimlico Racecourse will honor more than 151 years of racing history while embracing a bold, modern future. And now more than ever, it pays to be Maryland bred. With more than $17 million in added incentives offered annually, Maryland is one of the most attractive and sustainable jurisdictions for racing locally bred horses. Be part of the new era. Visit Pimlico.com.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. Jim from New Jersey emailed us recently and spoke of his memories of two-time champion filly Go for Wand. He asked if we would be willing to take time to remember her as well, and we have agreed to do so, especially since she holds a special place in Keeneland racing history. Go for Wand was a bay filly foaled April 6, 1987 at Walnut Green in Pennsylvania. Her sire was champion Deputy Minister, while her dam was stakes winner Obia by Cyan. Obia had won 2 editions of the Delaware Handicap, and Cyan had won the Belmont Futurity, racing in the yellow and purple silks of Christiana stable of Harry and Jane DuPont Lunger. Harry passed in 1976, but Go for Wand would compete as a homebred for Jane under the Christiana name in what was termed by the press as a rejuvenated stable. According to reports at the time Go for Wand raced, her dam's name was connected to witchcraft in the tropics. It was said that if someone put a spell or a hex on you, then you had to go and get a wand to protect yourself. And that was how the name Go for Wand came to be. Trained by William Bill Badgett Jr., Go for Wand debuted as a juvenile in September of 1989 by winning a maiden special weight at Belmont Park. In her second start, she led all the way in Allowance Company on a sloppy track at Belmont and won by 18 lengths. Go for Wand was then runner-up in her stakes debut in the Grade 1 Frizette, beaten a half length before coming back to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies at Gulfstream Park in her 4th career outing. She would be named Eclipse Champion 2-year-old filly of 1989. After a 5-month layoff, Go for Wand returned to the races in April of 1990. Badgett had brought her to Lexington, where she impressed onlookers with her morning workouts before making her season's debut. Go for Wand opened her 3-year-old season in spectacular fashion at Keeneland on April 10th, when she won the Grade 3 Beaumont by nearly 9 lengths in stakes record time. She then came back 11 days later to win the Grade 1 Ashland by 5 lengths as the odds-on favorite. After a runner-up finish in the Kentucky Oaks, Badgett said he ran her back too quickly off the Ashland. Go for Wand won 5 consecutive Grade 1 races in New York from 7 to 10 furlongs. That string included stakes records in the Test, the Alabama, and the Belding. Jockey Randy Romero declared there was no filly in the world who could beat her. Turf rider Bill Finley suggested she had already clinched the 3-year-old filly championship and that a run in the Breeders' Cup Classic instead of the Distaff could increase her chances of being Horse of the Year. Finley was correct insofar as Go for Wand would win the Eclipse for 3-year-old fillies, but she would run against her own sex in the Distaff at Belmont Park, where she went nose-to-nose with defending winner Bayakoa before stumbling, then falling at the 16th pole. Announcer Tom Durkin described a crowd of 55,000 sitting in stunned silence. Dr. Neil Cleary, the track veterinarian, made official what everyone feared. It was a compound injury of the right front ankle, and because of the severity, Go for Wand could not be saved. She would be buried 2 days later on the infield at Saratoga. Badgett, who had watched the race unfold while standing near the finish line, said, "She was trying so hard. I think she overextended herself and took a bad step. She gave too much." One turf rider noted that Badgett had been an assistant trainer for Woody Stevens and Claiborne Farm when Swale won the Belmont Stakes and then died 8 days later in 1984. As the writer said, knowledge that such events happen does not equate to preparation for the sudden death of a racehorse, especially a champion. Everyone struggled, understandably, to cope with the loss. As one race fan wrote in a letter to the editor of an industry magazine, Go for Wand was game and beautiful, and she represented a host of dreams and possibilities. The image of the champion who fights to the last breath is mythic. It resonates. That power is noble and raises the sport above the cruelty and waste of its worst moments. Her fragility makes one realize how much she was worth, the letter continued, and how much every horse is worth. She demonstrated all the ability, grit, determination, and will to win that have ever been displayed by any athlete, human or equine. She died giving her all. In 1996, Go for Wand was inducted into racing's Hall of Fame in her first year of eligibility. Jane DuPont Lunger was in attendance, and she was asked how she wanted her filly to be remembered. "She raced with such joy and abandon," said Lunger. "That's what I want people to remember about her. I am very grateful for having owned such a lovely filly." Given that her owner wanted her to be remembered, we appreciate the suggestion from Jim in New Jersey, and we remember Go for Wand, the filly who ran with abandon and joy. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
Nobody weaves a story together like Kurt Becker. My thanks to Kurt for that story. If you missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, check out the Stroll Through Racing History page on our website, horseracingradio.net, and you can listen to all of those shows. And don't forget, too, about our weekly Brisnet.com call-in show, 6 to 7 Eastern, every Thursday with Bobby Neuman and James Scully. It is your chance to call in and talk racing with our experts. Every Thursday, 6 to 7 Eastern, here on HRRN. Coming up next, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
A Keeneland session topper from the first crop of the all-conquering Vekoma. Jonathan's Way was touted by purchaser John Moynihan as, quote, one of the best-looking horses you'll ever lay your eyes on. Out of an undefeated stakes-winning juvenile daughter of Indian Charlie, Jonathan's Way is a complete outcross through his first 5 generations and comes from the immediate female family of the great Dynaformer. Brilliantly talented with the pedigree and physical makeup to be commercial dynamite. Jonathan's Way, a future stallion star, standing at Airdrie Stud. Think about it.
Dear racing fans, we've been waiting for you. We've been working, prepping, training, putting together thrilling races, new spaces, favorite traditions, and fresh experiences. From right on the rail to the top of the hill. Whether it's your first meet or your 50th, we can't wait to welcome you back this spring. Love, Keeneland.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Just over a quarter mile to come. Top of the stretch of the Toyota Bluegrass. Further ado, moving forward to the far outside to take the lead off the far turn. Creole Chrome is now second. Great White Trumps back third. Talkin is in fourth. Into the final furlong. It's Further Ado by 5. Further Ado by 6, by 8. We've seen this before. Here he comes to the 16th pole. A magnificent run to win the Grade 1 Toyota Bluegrass. Further Ado, Irad Ortiz Jr. Spendthrift wins the Bluegrass. Otinho did rally up to be second, followed by Talkin in third, and Creole Chrome fourth, 1 minute 49.59 seconds.
You heard Kurt Becker on this show last Saturday saying that if Further Ado wins the Bluegrass, he would get one hell of a call, and boy, did he ever. He does it again, returning to Keeneland to dominate the Bluegrass Stakes by 11 lengths under jockey Irad Ortiz Jr. Is he now the horse to beat on the first Saturday in May? And if so, why is Ortiz going elsewhere? We'll talk about that. Plus, what went wrong in race 5 at Keeneland last Saturday, and which racetrack offers the biggest home field advantage? All of those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf rider Tim Wilkin, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
A spark turns into a dream, and your dreams fuel a love that will last a lifetime. Turn your passion into a career with experienced guidance, a thorough study of equine business, as well as opportunities to get your hands dirty and put your mind to work. Located in the heart of horse country, let your passion fuel your profession at the U of L Equine Industry Program. Apply today.
Dale, Tim, ready to roll. First Saturday in May right around the corner. The major Derby prep races are done, and for that matter, considering the Lexington Stakes this afternoon won't have an impact on the Derby picture, we can say that the Derby prep season is officially in the books. And with that, we begin with a question from Shane in North Carolina. Guys, he wants to know which Kentucky Derby contender has impressed you most. Timmy, you want it first?
Okay. Well, it's the big three, it's Commandment, Further Ado, and Renegade, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that are going to certainly garnish all the headlines as we, get closer to the Kentucky Derby. And, I would think that Renegade, I would think those three will vie for favoritism. And I would think that maybe Renegade would be the favorite off of the, win the Sam F. Davis by 3 and change, and the Arkansas Derby by 4. But you got to remember this. Just put this in everybody's back of their minds. In the last 5 Kentucky Derbies, the favorite did not win. None of the favorites won in those 5 editions. But before that, I think favorites won like almost every year. Mm-hmm. But for right now, I'm going to stay with Commandment because I really like his grit and his determination, winning the Fountain of Youth by a neck and then winning the Florida Derby by a nose. And I've always been more partial to the horses that come out of Florida than the others. And apologies to American Pharoah in Arkansas, but I just think Commandment has just shown the fight that you need to win the Kentucky Derby, and I'm going to stick with him for right now.
I'll go Renegade because it impresses me that Irad chose him. And with Irad, I will trust. He must feel something under him he really likes.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk more about that topic coming up in just a little bit. Irad Ortiz Jr. had a choice of Commandment, Further Ado, Renegade, who he had ridden in the past. He ends up choosing Renegade over the other two. Dale, let me ask you this question. Timmy brings up the fact that Commandment, he's tough. He has some grit. He had to fight to win the Florida Derby. Is there something to be said for a horse that's been through the battles, so to speak, as opposed to others like Further Ado, who wins by 11, Renegade wins by 4? Is there anything that could be learned about Commandment from those performances?
It just shows if it gets into a dogfight, he'll, not that the others won't, but he'll put up a fight. He's already done it. He's answered the question. Yes, he's answered the question. The others might too. We don't know. They haven't been tested at going down the lane like he has, and we'll see.
And with Further Ado, maybe he's since the Breeders' Cup's at Keeneland this year, maybe he's the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic after winning the Maiden by 20 and the Bluegrass by 11. He loves it there.
Horses for courses.
Yeah, horses for courses. Again, that's another topic we have coming up from a listener later in the program, so I'll save that thought until we get to it. We're going to talk about which racetracks might offer the biggest home field advantages for the horses that are competing there on a regular basis. We'll get to that coming up in just a few minutes, but let's move on to the next topic then. And this one comes from Gary, who emails the show, and he says last Saturday, a technical glitch between United Tote and that feed and the graphics displayed on the Keeneland simulcast signal led to incorrect odds being shown on many of the horses in the 5th race that day, including the winner UW, who was 14-1 entering the gate, crossed the line at 13-1, and when the payoffs were posted a few minutes later, those who had bet $2 on UW only received $18.74, so just over 8-1. Guys, anything that can be done moving forward to prevent these types of glitches? Tim?
I don't think so. I mean, it was a mistake, obviously a mistake. And it wasn't done maliciously, or it was a mistake that happened. And, what can you do? There's nothing you can do. The people that bet on the winner still got paid. I mean, it's not like they got screwed. I mean, the odds were never going to be that high. The current odds were displayed on all the advanced deposit wagering platforms. It's unfortunate that it happened that way, but that horse went off. He was basically going off at 8-1. He wasn't going off at 13-1 and 14-1 or 14-1 or whatever it was. It was almost like it was just locked. The thing was locked, and Keeneland, they put a statement out right away talking about that, saying how they. There was a mistake made. Mistakes happen. Everybody makes a mistake. Every gambler makes a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. So let's not
beat up Keeneland on this one. I mean, it happened, and it hasn't happened since, and I doubt it'll happen again. Move on.
Yeah, if you were only going to bet on him because he was 13-1, and wouldn't have bet him because he's 8-1, they did you a favor. So be happy. And, you got your 8-1. Things happen. I mean, there's 10 races, 10 horses a day, 10 races a day, 10 horses a race, 10 races a day, 100 horses all over the country. You're dealing with technology. There are glitches. Things happen. You drop cell phone calls. So things happen, and you got the right odds. You got what you were supposed to get. It was just advertised wrong. If that's the only reason you bet on the horse because you were 14-1, you got lucky.
Dale, I guess the only people that don't make mistakes are you and me.
No, I'm looking forward to the day that I do because I want to see what it's like.
Well, I don't know if that day's ever going to come, Dale Romans.
Right, there you go.
Gary, well, I appreciate the question,
one of my best traits is humility.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gary, appreciate the question. The technical glitch, unfortunate, but 8-1, the proper price on UW, who ends up winning that race. Tom in St. Louis has a question for you guys again this week. He says, in watching the races from opening weekend at Keeneland, it seemed that horses that had run well in the past at Keeneland were also performing well again this year. And we all know about that horse for course angle. Dale just brought it up a minute ago. Guys, is there such a thing as a home court advantage when it comes to racetracks? And if so, which tracks offer the most significant home field advantages? Dale, what do you think?
I got 3. 2 are home field advantages because you train over the racetrack. I actually got throw 4 in there. Tampa, toughest racetrack in America, in my opinion, to train somewhere else and ship in and run. It's a different type of white. You can see how white the sand is. Belmont Park, when it was the big Sandy, I would always try to get there early to train over it as much as possible. Saratoga, Graveyard of Champions, named that for a reason. Those are all, if you're training there, you've got an edge. The one track is you never know if a horse is going to like it or not like, that's Kentucky Downs, because they're up and down the hills. And so that's a tough track to run on. That's not about training because nobody trains there. It's just a matter of whether or not your horse likes it. And I pulled a Timmy on this question. I gave all the answers, so now he's got to figure out another one.
I'm just going to sit out.
That does me all the time.
Well, Dale, I'm glad your humility has come out on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just looking at. I'm going to talk about Saratoga because I'm most familiar with that. You know, horses that have. There's been a lot of horses that have just thrived up there. You look at the likes of 4-Star Dave won 9 times there. Quick Call won 9 times there. You know, horses that are familiar with the track that are training there. Now they're starting in the spring and going into the summer. I think the main track opens because of the Belmont Stakes. I think the main track opens on May 11th. So you're going to have horses that are up there that are going to be able to be on that track, you know, all spring and into the summer. There's going to be, I think there has to be an edge for that. I mean, horses that train regularly on a specific surface are better adapted to the day-to-day conditions rather than a shipper. They can stay fresher, and they don't have to ship. And then I think it's the same for any track that has the trainers that stay there for a whole meet, a whole summer, a whole spring. You know, I think that the trainers that are in Keeneland, even though it's a short meet, have an advantage. The ones that are in Churchill have an advantage. I mean, look what Baffert does out in California because he's there. He just dominates. If you have familiarity with a surface, I think for sure you're going to have a home court advantage.
Is it more about the surface or the shipping to that racetrack and that surface?
I think it's both.
It's the surface more than anything. Because, you know, it's like one track, and the ones I listed are all kind of deep, sandy racetracks. And it's one thing that it's just like jogging every day on the asphalt at a racetrack has a lot of bounce in it that's a little more firm, and then going to the beach and trying to jog. It's a totally different muscle group, and it takes you a little while to get used to it.
Dale, if you're training
horses, when when I ship into a place, I usually like to gallop a couple weeks before I even start breezing, just for that purpose.
All right, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. If you're planning to run a horse at Tampa Bay Downs, and let's focus on that one since you brought it up, and it's so unique. Do you train your horse differently in the weeks leading up to it, knowing that that's going to be your next start over that surface?
No, you can't train for that. You really can't. You got to, like I said, every time I ran to Belmont, which we end up never winning it, but it was third 4 times, I tried to get there early and train over it for 2 reasons. It was a very sandy. Woody Stevens labeled it Big Sandy, and it's such a big track. It's different for a horse. So they're out there on their left lead a lot longer than they are on any other racetrack. I think there's some tracks that I've found are easy to ship into. I think that the fairgrounds, for instance, I've never had any trouble shipping there. They seem to bounce over it a little bit more. Aqueduct was always a racetrack that I didn't mind shipping into. They seem like you just bounce over it. But, you know, a lot of times going north to south, the tracks are a lot sandier. So Gulfstream could even be one that you would talk about. It's good to train over first.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, Dale. I mean, you used to be stabled at Saratoga over on the Oklahoma, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you train on the Oklahoma and not go to the main track as much?
I would gallop on Oklahoma and usually breeze at the main track, but they're very similar. Oklahoma used to be a little bit deeper, and I think going from deeper to tighter is the easiest path. You don't want to go from a tight track to a deep track.
But the fact that a horse would do most of its training, except for breezing, on the training track, does that make it like he's not used to the main track?
No, but like I said, he's used to. They keep Oklahoma a little bit deeper, right, a little bit heavier, a little bit more plumb. So that's the easier thing to do. Go from there over. You know, there's a lot of guys very successful that do most of their training at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know, Mott has his horses training over there. Clement, Christoph, Chad has a bunch of trains over there. So I think that's like I say, that's an easier transition. You're not going from if the training track was a bouncy racetrack that they didn't have to struggle through as much as they do, I think you wouldn't see that. You'd see them all coming over the main track to train.
What about
considering? Go ahead, Tim.
What about down in Florida when they, the horses that come down from Payson or Palmettos, they train up there, but then they come and race at Gulfstream. They just race at the track. Is that
they're very similar tracks, Palmettos and Gulfstream, and that's by design. They're designed the exact same. They got the same cushion, the same material on them, and they're very similar.
So you would say that a horse that's stabled at Palmetto still would have a home court advantage racing at Gulfstream?
Yeah, compared to someone shipping that has been training at Aqueduct in the winter, definitely. Climate has a lot to do with it, too. I always say on here that it's much easier to ship from a warm climate to a cold climate on a horse. You go from north to south, you'll see a lot of horses ship down that look like they should run good with their form. They don't run well at all.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Dale, let me ask you this question. Since we're 3 weeks away from the Kentucky Derby at Churchill, I had always heard that horses that have a high action and they're more climbers have a harder time with that surface at Churchill, the main track, than horses that don't run with that action. Is that true?
I got no idea there. That's the first time I ever heard that. Now, it's not the same surface it was 10 years ago. We're using different material. It used to be a little bit cuppy, and it would break out from under horses from behind. And some horses didn't like it here. And I don't think it's quite like that anymore.
All right. Tom has a second part of his question here, and this is completely unrelated to the surface, but he asks if you can explain what a 2-minute lick is and how a trainer might use a 2-minute lick leading up to the Kentucky Derby to prepare a horse to run 10 furlongs for the first time. Would they ever do that?
The 2-minute lick, yeah, I mean, they're going to work them, but they might 2-minute lick them in there some part of the way. That's that's considered a 2-minute mile. And so that's a little faster than the average gallop, but it's not quite a breeze. You know, a horse can breeze a mile in 39:40, which would be a good mile breeze, but a 2-minute mile would just be a little faster than a gallop, a little less than a breeze. And it gets their heart pumping.
Can it help a horse get the added distance for a race like the Kentucky Derby?
It might, without putting as much stress on them.
Yeah.
You know, in the old days, they all would work a mile before the Derby. They don't do that anymore. I remember Woody Stevens would work them a half mile a couple of days before a mile work on Tuesday before the Derby. They don't train. We don't train like that anymore. They used to train the heck out of them. I don't know why we've changed so much, but we have.
Yeah, things are a little different now. Tom, appreciate the question. And, again, we'll remind our listeners, if you have a question for Dale and Tim, you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. We'll do our best to work it in for you. Already have a couple for next week, guys. I'm going to save them for next week, but they're pretty good ones. Let's move on and say hello to our friend Nick Zito. And Dale and Tim get to tell me if the following statement is right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
All right, a little different angle for you this week with this topic here, guys. Jockeys choosing which horse to ride in the Kentucky Derby, or trainers choosing which jockey they want to leg up on the horse, is kind of the ultimate game of right or wrong. Which of these jockeys is most likely to have gotten it right? Is it Irad Ortiz Jr., who chose Arkansas Derby winner Renegade? Is it Luis Saez, who will go with Florida Derby hero Commandment? Or Johnny V, who takes the Bluegrass victor Further Ado?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Which one got it right? Timmy, which one?
The answer will be made sometime late on the first Saturday in May, obviously. Now we're just trying to figure out who we think made the right decision. You would think that Irad holds all the cards on this one, because he's ridden Further Ado, he's ridden Renegade, he's ridden Commandment. Those three horses have a combined 16 starts, and Irad has ridden 12 of those 16 starts. He's ridden Further Ado 5 times. He's ridden Renegade 4 times. He's ridden Commandment 3 times. So you'd think that it's him. This is probably the best chance he's got to win the Kentucky Derby. He's ridden in the Derby 9 times, and the best finish he ever had was a 4th when he rode the favorite Improbable in 2019. I mean, the last 3 times he's been on, he's finished 18th, 13th, and 14th. And I believe, Dale, he rode Cyclone Mischief for you, correct?
He did.
And wasn't that like a day of decision?
Yeah, it was. It might not have been day of, but it was pretty late that we.
Yeah, it was pretty late because but he's and the other, like Johnny V is never ridden Further Ado. I mean, he would have been probably riding Class President, but he's out now. He's not going to run in the Derby. And Luis Saez has never ridden Commandment. So I would think that the guy that's making the right decision, you would think, is Irad, because he's ridden all 3 of them. So you take what his decision, or as he always says, it's the agent's decision. He just goes where the agent tells him to go. But he's picking Renegade, so I guess you'd say Irad is the one that's making the right decision today.
He's probably the only one that really had a decision to make. I mean, the other 2, whatever they would have ridden, have moved up in the ranks for sure. He's the only one that has a decision. And Steve Russian is one of the greatest agents of all time. Makes very few mistakes. So you can obviously say it as Jose and Irad both. And if Steve likes Renegade the best, one of the best handicappers in the world, doesn't make many wrong choices, I'm going to say he's doing the right thing.
Dale, how does this process work? Is it Irad going to Steve and saying, hey, I've been on each of these horses. This is the one I like the best. He's the 1.25 mile horse. Or is it Steve going to Irad and saying, hey, man, I've talked to these trainers, and here's what I'm hearing from the trainers?
It's Steve's final call. And you have to work your way up. You have to earn the right to make those decisions. And Steve, over the last 30 years, has done it for sure, has earned that right. Now, I'm sure he will consult with Irad. He might ask him if ones he doesn't like better than the other. But I don't think that at the end of the day, Steve makes the final calls. Irad's not just saying that when he says it. He may consult with him, but it's up to Steve to make the final decision.
Have you ever had those decisions? I mean, those conversations, Dale? Do you get involved?
Yeah, you get involved with it a little bit. I mean, especially if you're one that they have a decision between yours and another horse, and you really want them to ride yours, you might chime in and say, hey, he's really doing good. You might make a mistake here. But at the end of the day, it's up to Steve.
We'll find out in 3 weeks' time.
One of the best guys in the game and one of the best agents of all time.
Yeah. We'll find out which one of those three got it right in 3 weeks' time. Maybe none of the three got it right. We'll find out. That's the beauty of a 20-horse Kentucky Derby field. Moving on to our final topic before our West Point of the week. It comes from Pete in Agawam, Massachusetts. And Dale, this is for you. He said, knowing that males usually dominate the U.S. racing scene, especially at this time of the year, they're certainly in the spotlight. He was thinking of your great horses like Kitten's Joy and Shackelford and Keen Ice. But he wants to know how you plan your barn for the year relating to the females. Do you aim for a certain percentage of females in the barn, or do you simply look for what the owners want?
Well, you know, most of my guys today are looking for, there's two ways really to play this game. And the most conservative way is to buy high pedigree fillies that you would like to put into a broodmare band. Because even if you're a grade 3 winner and you don't make it to the top, you have a significant value at the end of your career. You buy colts, there's less than 1% every year will go off to stud. Now, that's the real home run if you can find one of those 1%ers, and that's where the real money is. So there's the guys that want to just focus on Triple Crown type of horses to develop a stallion, and those guys only buy colts. They might, if they've got a stallion, they might filter a few of the fillies in. And then there's guys that want to play the game on a more conservative way but still be at a high level, and they'll want to go buy high pedigreed fillies. And, you know, we take whatever we can. But I've told a story before, I think. I was working for Woody Stevens when I was 19 years old, and I had a grade 1 winning filly. And I walked her down and put her on the van, and Woody picked me up in this little Mercedes. I thought it was the coolest thing ever happened to me, riding back to the barn with Woody Stevens in a Mercedes. And he looked over and he said, boy, if you ever train horses, don't train fillies. There's no breeding rights on that van. And so I thought at the time, I'll never train a horse to make it to a stallion, so I'm not worrying about that, Woody. But nowadays, I know what he's talking about.
Is it easier to train fillies or not?
No, I think it's more difficult. I think they're mentally tougher, most of them, to deal with.
Really?
You know, they're moody. I could say something very chauvinistic, but I won't.
You could.
You really got to deal with their minds more than you do a colt.
He won't say it because Tammy's sitting right next to him.
Well, she's not, but she might listen to the replay.
No, she never listens. I thought she never listens.
She doesn't listen, but somebody call and tell her I said something off color, she'll listen.
Yeah, there are a couple of different ways you can approach this, and that's the beauty of thoroughbred racing. If you really want to swing for the fences and own colts and look for that one that hits in a big way, well, you're looking at a big score. But otherwise, you're probably better off taking the route with the fillies. It depends on what your risk tolerance is with thoroughbred racing, and that's just the beauty of the game. Guys, time to wrap it all up as we do every week with our West Point of the week. And I will remind our listeners that owning a racehorse with West Point Thoroughbreds means you are in the care of complete professionals who guide you throughout your ownership journey. You'll get instant access to the highest levels of racing, world-class trainers, jockeys, racetracks, and, of course, your horse. West Point Thoroughbreds, the gold standard in racing partnerships. Tim Wilkin, what is your West Point of the week?
You know, it seemed to me that, like yesterday, there was like a foot of snow on the ground. But here we are heading into mid-April, and the Oklahoma training track is going to open. People can put the horse, open the track is going to open up on April 15th, and training's going to open up on the 20th. It just seems mind-boggling to me. It seems like yesterday was Christmas to me. Time just flies on, and here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. Can't wait to get back up there. My point, Gwen Davis, the girl who handles all my communication in the office, came to the barn today and said she's got a request from Shane wanting to come visit the barn. And he's coming in on Thursday, be here at Oaks Day. And the first thing I thought of was Shane asked me a couple of bad questions about some of my horses that got hurt, and call back and tell him he's on his own. But Shane, I'll take care of you. We just got to wait till we get a little closer. I'll get you to the barn and give you a nice tour.
What a guy.
Yeah, I've already forgotten all that other stuff.
You'll play with him about it, though.
Oh, yeah, I'll bring it up to him when I see him. I look forward to meeting him. I'm going to get a picture of us together, and you put it up on your website, Mike.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, Shane, you're in for a real treat hanging out with Dale Romans for a day. That'd be fantastic. Dale, appreciate it. Timmy, as always, great stuff. We will do this all over again next Saturday, guys.
All right, guys. I'll see you later.
All right. If you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim discuss, email your topic to me, mike@horseracingradio.net, or you can post it on our social media pages. We will do our best to work it into the program for you. I Ask the Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. I'm back with more, including the answer to this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question, next on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
Here we go. Come on, boys.
Good luck. And they're off. Be part of the story. Own the moment. Go to MojoRacingPartners.com to get your mojo working.
My doctor said I could use something called a biosimilar. Then she told me what it is.
A biosimilar is a type of biologic medication. Just like brand name drugs have generic versions, original biologics can have biosimilars.
So I asked what the benefits are and if they work the same.
Biosimilars have the same safety, effectiveness, and quality as the original biologic. They also offer more medication options at potentially more competitive prices.
My doctor said I could learn more at fda.gov/biosimilars.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I think the advice I would give is you don't need to know all the answers. The craziest thing was believing that your dad knew everything. So as a dad, you felt like you had to know everything. You had to get everything right. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as it's coming from love, then, it kind of starts to work itself out. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The Department of Veterans Affairs is so innovative, it not only improves the lives of veterans, it transforms the lives of healthcare professionals who serve them with access to the latest technologies and remarkable benefits. Transform your future at vacareers.va.gov.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Kelly Clarkson, and as the daughter of a school teacher, I know just how important education is. No matter how old you are or your situation, continuing to learn will enrich your life and help remove barriers you didn't even know were there. So much opportunity, y'all. Whether it's a foreign language, history, or a different way to look at things, take some time each day to learn something new. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, remember, breeding season is here, and your planning isn't complete without the free Global Stallions app from Blood Horse and Weatherbees. You can browse stallions worldwide and view the standard stallion register page, stud analysis by foal, crop, and racing year, up-to-date stakes winners and results, upcoming entries, auction results, and much, much more. Search for the Global Stallions app wherever in the app and Play Store. That's a wonderful app from Blood Horse and from Weatherbees. Makes your life a lot easier. Lee Delapina has the answer to this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question. Lee?
Thank you, Mike. What horse had the slowest winning time in Kentucky Derby history? That was the 1891 winner, Kingman, who took 2 minutes 52.25 seconds to complete the then 1.5 mile race. Thanks to Mojo Racing Partners for this week's impossible trivia question. Get your mojo working at MojoRacingPartners.com.
A little twist to the end of that answer from Lee. Yeah, that's a tough question, too. Boy, really tough. That's why we call it the impossible trivia question. And again, as Lee said, our thanks to Mojo Racing for their sponsorship. One of my favorite conversations as part of that show that you just heard with Dale and Tim, I asked the answer, was the portion about which jockey has gotten it right. Irad Ortiz, Luis Saez, Johnny V. And Dale pointed out, Luis and Johnny, it wasn't probably their choice. They just took the next best available, which is pretty good. You got the 3 favorites, Renegade, Commandment, Further Ado. Irad says, I've ridden all 3. Give me Renegade. Very telling. We'll see how that plays out in 3 weeks' time. We'll know the answer to that right after that 1.25 mile journey. All right, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible, including Ashley Anderson with the TwinSpires Triple Play, Kurt Becker for his Stroll Through Racing History, Dale and Tim in the previous segment as well. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studios, Chauncey for handling all of our social media, and to each of you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. Go Steelers.